beneath the soil of forgotten lands, on windswept cliffs, deep in steaming jungles, and buried under shifting sands, stand the silent giants of our past. Towering stones, carved with impossible precision, aligned to the stars with a knowledge we still struggle to comprehend. These megalithic monuments defy the limits of their time, whispering of civilizations long vanished, cultures whose names may never be known, yet whose creations endure. Who raised these colossal stones, weighing hundreds of tons, without the machines we consider essential today? Why do their placements echo celestial patterns, as if their builders reached for something beyond the earth itself? Were these structures temples, tombs, or something altogether different? Each site challenges our understanding of human history, daring us to question the stories we tell about where we came from and what might have been lost along the way. So sit back, relax, and let's step into the shadows of the ancient world, where stone remembers what history forgot. The ruins of Ugarit lie quietly along the Mediterranean coast of modern-day Syria. To walk among them is to step into the remnants of a world that once pulsed with trade, language, and myth. The air is dry, the stones weathered, and yet there is a peculiar sense of permanence here, as if the land itself remembers what has been forgotten by time. Broken walls and scattered foundations stretch beneath the sun, the outlines of palaces and temples barely visible, their stories eroded but not erased. Ugarit was not a minor outpost. Nearly 3,500 years ago, it was one of the great city-states of the late Bronze Age, a crossroads of cultures and ideas. From its harbor, ships sailed across the eastern Mediterranean, carrying copper, tin, ivory, and fine textiles. Merchants from Egypt, Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and the Aegean all left their imprint here. The wealth of Ugarit allowed for monumental architecture. Temples dedicated to Baal and Dagon, royal palaces spanning multiple courtyards, and archives filled with thousands of clay tablets. It was from those tablets that one of Ugarit's most enduring legacies emerged. In 1928, when a farmer's plow struck stone and revealed a buried tomb, the rediscovery of Ugarit began. Excavations soon uncovered a trove of cuneiform tablets inscribed with a script unlike any seen before. This was the Ugaritic alphabet, 30 simple signs, phonetic in nature, considered one of the earliest alphabets in human history. Unlike the complex hieroglyphs of Egypt or the intricate wedge-shaped writing of Mesopotamia, Ugaritic script represented a streamlined leap forward. Was it innovation born from necessity? Or could it have been influenced by an even older, now lost system of writing? The texts themselves are equally fascinating. Within them we find myths of gods and cosmic battles, stories that echo faintly through later traditions. Tales of Baal, the storm god, clashing with Yam, the chaotic sea. Descriptions of a divine council that bear uncanny resemblance to scenes from later biblical writings. Scholars have long debated these parallels. Were the myths of Ugarit direct ancestors of the Hebrew Bible's imagery, or were they part of a broader cultural tapestry, threads woven together by centuries of exchange? Yet the mysteries of Ugarit do not end with its literature. The city fell suddenly around 1200 BCE, part of the great wave of destruction that ended the Bronze Age across the eastern Mediterranean. The so-called Sea Peoples, enigmatic marauders whose origins remain uncertain, are often blamed. But the evidence at Ugarit tells a more ambiguous story. Letters found in the ruins suggest the city's king appealed desperately for help, warning of enemies closing in. Ships were dispatched, but they arrived too late. Was it invasion alone that doomed Ugarit? Or were natural disasters, earthquakes, and famine also part of its undoing? Some researchers point to signs of fire and violent collapse, while others note that entire archives were left behind, as though the inhabitants fled in haste. What is striking is the completeness of the city's disappearance. After centuries of prosperity, Ugarit was simply gone, its name erased from memory until modern archaeology uncovered it once more. But perhaps the most intriguing questions arise when we consider what remains undiscovered. The ruins stretch far beyond the central palace complex, much of it still unexcavated. Were there hidden chambers beneath the temples, storage rooms, or ritual spaces yet to be revealed? Some believe that lost texts, maybe entire mythic cycles, may still lie buried, sealed in clay jars or under collapsed stone. What forgotten knowledge about the ancient world might still be sleeping beneath the sands of Ugarit? Speculation has even reached beyond conventional history. Some fringe researchers suggest that the remarkable leap of the Ugaritic alphabet hints at outside influence, knowledge imparted from a source not accounted for in our written records. Was it simply human ingenuity? Or could there have been a lost civilization whose innovations filtered quietly into Ugarit before vanishing without a trace? Mainstream historians remain cautious, but the gaps in the story invite questions that cannot yet be fully answered. Standing among the ruins today, it is easy to sense why such theories persist. The city feels suspended between what we know and what we cannot explain. The temple stones still align with the rising sun. The echoes of chants and rituals seem almost tangible in the silence, and scattered fragments of tablets hint at entire libraries of thought, art, and cosmology that remain beyond our reach. History tells us that Ugarit was a thriving city-state, an innovator in language, a link in the great chain of Mediterranean civilizations. Yet the ruins themselves suggest something more, an unfinished puzzle, its missing pieces concealed by time. Was Ugarit simply another casualty of shifting empires and climate change? Or was it, in some way, the custodian of deeper truths about the origins of myth, writing, and human imagination? The stones do not answer. They wait. And perhaps, beneath the layers of earth that still cover parts of this ancient city, the story of Ugarit is not yet finished. From the windswept ruins of Ugarit, our journey carries us further south, across deserts and rugged highlands, into the heart of ancient Jordan. Here, carved from sandstone cliffs and nestled within the famed city of Petra, stands one of the most enigmatic monuments of the Nabatean world, Qasr al-Bint, the palace of the daughter of Pharaoh. At first glance, the structure rises like a fragment of a vanished kingdom. Towering walls of golden stone, weathered yet imposing, frame what was once the grandest freestanding building in Petra. Its facade bears little ornament compared to the elaborate rock-cut tombs that surround it, and yet there is a certain gravity here, an air of authority and reverence. Columns still stand upright despite centuries of earthquakes, their drums carefully fitted, as if the builders meant for the structure to outlast both time and empire. Archaeologists tell us that Qasr al-Bint was not a palace at all, but a temple, likely dedicated to Dushara, the chief god of the Nabateans. Constructed in the 1st century BCE, it served as a focal point of worship within the sacred precinct of Petra. Pilgrims would have ascended broad stairways, passing between monumental gateways to enter a sanctuary alive with ritual. The central cella, or inner chamber, once housed the cult statue, a silent deity presiding over offerings and ceremonies. But if we know it as a temple, why does tradition call it a palace? The local name, Palace of the Daughter of Pharaoh, has persisted for centuries. Some legends claim it was built as a gift from an Egyptian king to his daughter. Others suggest it was a Nabatean queen's residence. These stories blur the line between history and folklore, hinting that the true meaning of Qasr al-Bint was never entirely forgotten, but neither was it fully understood. The mystery deepens when we look closer at its construction. Unlike most of Petra's monuments, which are carved directly into the living rock, Qasr al-Bint is freestanding, assembled from massive ashlar blocks. Its walls were bound together with thick layers of bitumen mortar, a technique unusual for the region and remarkably resistant to time. Was this engineering choice simply practical? Or was it symbolic, intended to set the temple apart from all others? Then there is the matter of its orientation. Some researchers argue that the temple aligns with celestial events, particularly the rising of certain stars or the movement of the sun at solstices. Others see in its design echoes of Hellenistic or Roman influence, blended with indigenous traditions. Was Qasr al-Bint merely another temple in the cosmopolitan world of the Near East, or was it something more, a convergence point where different cultures, beliefs, and perhaps even hidden knowledge came together? Inside, the traces of ritual life linger only faintly. Archaeologists have found altars, carved niches, and fragments of offerings. But what was the full scope of ceremonies carried out here? Were they simple acts of devotion, or did they involve more elaborate rites, processions, initiations, or astronomical observations woven into religious practice? Some fringe theories even suggest that Qasr al-Bint may have been part of a larger network of sacred sites across Petra, each aligned to natural features, designed as much for cosmic symbolism as for human worship. The collapse of Nabatean independence in the early 2nd century CE only adds to the enigma. After Rome annexed the region, Petra's significance declined. Yet Qasr al-Bint seems to have remained important, perhaps even adapted for new purposes under Roman and Byzantine influence. Was it continuously revered, its god reinterpreted across generations? Or was it abandoned, left as a silent monument to a faith that vanished with its people? Legends persisted long after its builders were gone. Some local tales speak of hidden treasures buried beneath the temple, sealed away when invaders approached. Others whisper of secret tunnels connecting Qasr al-Bint to distant chambers within Petra's cliffs. To this day, many of these claims remain unverified. But in a place where entire valleys hide carved facades invisible until you round the bend, is it so hard to imagine that more still lies unseen? And then there is the question of meaning itself. The Nabateans were a people of merchants and desert traders, their wealth built on controlling routes of incense, spices, and silk. Yet they also possessed a remarkable spiritual vision. They carved altars into mountaintops, aligned shrines with the heavens, and constructed this massive temple in the very heart of their sacred city. What drove them to such monumental expressions of faith? Was it mere devotion, or something more profound, a worldview in which commerce, landscape, and cosmos were all bound together? Even now, as visitors stand in the shadow of Qasr al-Bint, the building resists easy explanation. Its battered walls carry the scars of time, but they also carry silence. Silence about the rites once performed, the voices that once echoed within, and the purpose it was meant to serve in the grand design of Petra. Was Qasr al-Bint truly just a temple to a local god? Or was it, as its name suggests, a palace in the truest sense, a residence not of mortals, but of the divine itself? And if so, what knowledge, what sacred order might still be hidden beneath its crumbling stones? The answers remain buried in the desert winds. Qasr al-Bint stands as a riddle carved in stone, a reminder that even in the most studied of ancient cities, some truths refuse to be fully revealed. From the golden stones of Petra, our path now turns westward, across oceans, across continents, to the rugged peaks of the Andes. Here, in the thick forests of southern Peru, lies another mystery, a city once whispered about in legends, hidden away in valleys cloaked with cloud and mist. The last refuge of the Inca Empire, Vilcabamba. The setting itself feels secretive. dense jungle swallows the landscape, rivers cut deep canyons into the earth, and towering mountains form natural walls that seem designed to conceal rather than reveal. To reach these places is not easy. Even today, with modern tools, explorers must endure days of difficult travel. In the 16th century, when the Spanish conquistadors advanced into the heart of the Inca world, Vilcabamba was not just remote, it was nearly invisible. According to chronicles, after the fall of Cusco in 1533, the Inca rulers retreated into these mountains, establishing a hidden stronghold where their dynasty could endure. For nearly 4 decades, Vilcabamba remained the seat of resistance, a shadow kingdom that defied the might of Spain. Here, Manco Inca and his successors maintained their rituals, their traditions, and their sovereignty, even as the empire around them collapsed. It was not until 1572 that the Spanish finally captured the last Inca king, Tupac Amaru I, bringing an end to Vilcabamba and, with it, the final chapter of the Inca Empire. But what exactly was Vilcabamba? And more importantly, where was it? The written accounts are frustratingly vague. Spanish chroniclers describe a city hidden beyond rivers and mountains, a place of gardens, terraces, and sacred shrines. Yet, when explorers in later centuries tried to match these descriptions to real locations, the trail dissolved into ambiguity. Was Vilcabamba a single city, or was it a region? A collection of settlements strung through the remote valleys of the Vilcabamba Range? In the 20th century, several discoveries added new layers to the mystery. In 1911, Hiram Bingham stumbled upon Machu Picchu, believing at first that he had uncovered the lost city of Vilcabamba. The grandeur of its terraces and temples seemed to fit the descriptions. Yet later evidence showed that Machu Picchu had been abandoned long before the Spanish conquest. It was never the Incas' final refuge. Decades later, in the 1960s and 70s, explorers identified the ruins of Espiritu Pampa, deep in the jungle. This site seemed to align more closely with historical accounts. Vast areas of agricultural terraces, traces of ceremonial buildings, and artifacts linked to the final Inca kings. Many scholars now consider Espiritu Pampa to be the true Vilcabamba. And yet, even here, questions linger. Espiritu Pampa does not look like the legendary city described in the chronicles. The ruins are scattered, far less monumental than Machu Picchu or Ollantaytambo. Could the Spaniards, influenced by rumor and imagination, have exaggerated the scale of Vilcabamba? Or might the city have been more than one place, a network of sites hidden in different valleys, leaving us only fragments of the whole? And then there are the stories that go beyond conventional history. Some believe Vilcabamba is still hidden, undiscovered in some remote fold of the Andes. The mountains are vast, the jungle relentless. Countless valleys remain unexplored. Could another city, larger, more intact, still wait beneath the canopy, concealed from view? Others suggest Vilcabamba may have been more symbolic than physical. A city of resistance, yes, but also a city of myth, representing the enduring spirit of the Inca even after their empire fell. If so, then perhaps it was never meant to be found in stone ruins alone, but in the cultural memory of a people who survived conquest. Yet, there are still tantalizing clues that point to something more. In recent years, satellite imagery and remote sensing technologies have revealed patterns of terraces, roads, and structures buried beneath the forest floor. Entire settlement systems once hidden to the human eye are beginning to emerge. What other secrets could these mountains still hold? Some fringe theories go further still. They suggest that Vilcabamba, as the last bastion of the Inca elite, might have safeguarded treasures or knowledge lost to the wider world. Gold carried from Cusco, sacred relics of the sun cult, or perhaps even records encoded in Quipu, the knotted cords used for keeping information. None of these have been found in definitive form, but the idea that something lies hidden, preserved by isolation, continues to capture imaginations. Standing in the quiet jungle of Espiritu Pampa, it is difficult to imagine the city at its height. The air hums with insects, roots twist over broken walls, and vines conceal the outlines of once orderly terraces. And yet, if you listen closely, you can almost hear the echo of a different time. Chants to the sun, footsteps of messengers moving through the forest, voices of rulers who clung fiercely to independence. Was Vilcabamba a single, shining city, lost and waiting to be rediscovered? Was it instead a scattered refuge, a series of strongholds united by defiance? Or is its true essence not in the stones at all, but in the resilience of a people whose culture outlived their empire? The answers remain uncertain. In the silence of the Peruvian jungle, the ruins pose questions without offering resolution. Perhaps that is Vilcabamba's greatest legacy, not what we can know, but what we cannot. A reminder that even in our age of satellites and archives, the past still holds places that refuse to yield their secrets. And so, the lost city lingers, half found, half imagined, somewhere between stone and legend, between history and mystery. From the dense jungles of Peru, where the whispers of Vilcabamba still linger, our journey now crosses the Atlantic, into the arid landscapes of West Africa. Here, in the heart of Mali, rises a sandstone escarpment that seems to stretch endlessly across the horizon. The Bandiagara cliffs. Sheer walls of rock tower above the plains, casting long shadows that shift with the sun. And carved into these cliffs, perched in places so precarious they appear almost unreachable, lie the enigmatic cliff dwellings of the Dogon country. The setting is dramatic, almost theatrical. Villages cling to the base of the cliffs, while high above, hundreds of tiny openings puncture the rock face. From a distance, they resemble swallows' nests. Up close, they reveal themselves to be ancient structures, mud brick granaries, houses, and tombs, constructed in positions that defy explanation. Who built them, and how? The first answer seems straightforward. Archaeologists tell us that these cliff dwellings were created by the Telem, a people who lived in the region before the arrival of the Dogon. The word Telem itself, in the Dogon language, means those who were before. According to oral tradition, the Telem were small in stature, skilled climbers who could scale the vertical cliffs with ease. Their homes and burial chambers remain embedded in the rock long after their culture vanished. By the 15th century, the Dogon had established themselves in the region, and the Telem were remembered only in story. But here is where the mystery deepens. Many of the cliff dwellings are situated so high that even with modern equipment, they are difficult to access. Some are hundreds of feet above the valley floor, clinging to sheer walls with no obvious paths or footholds. How did the Telem reach these places, carrying with them building materials, food, and even the bodies of the dead for burial? Did they possess climbing techniques that have since been lost? Or does their construction suggest something more enigmatic, knowledge or abilities we no longer understand? Inside the dwellings, archaeologists have uncovered human remains, pottery, textiles, and wooden statues preserved by the dry climate. The burials are especially intriguing. Bodies were placed in tightly curled positions within the caves, sometimes adorned with ornaments. Yet beyond these physical traces, little is known about the Telem themselves. Where did they come from? Why did they vanish? And why did they choose to live in such seemingly impossible spaces? The Dogon, who inherited this landscape, added further layers to the mystery. Their own culture is rich in cosmology, ritual, and symbolism. For centuries, the Dogon people have performed elaborate ceremonies, including the famous Sigui festival, which occurs only once every 60 years. Central to their traditions is a complex mythology about the origins of the universe and humanity. Here lies one of the most debated enigmas of the Bandiagara cliffs. According to early anthropological studies in the 20th century, Dogon elders described knowledge of the star Sirius, knowledge that appeared to predate modern astronomy. They spoke of Sirius as a binary system, with an invisible companion star they called Potolo. This companion, they claimed, was small, dense, and of great importance in their cosmology. Astronomers later confirmed that Sirius indeed has a white dwarf companion, nearly invisible to the naked eye and unknown to Western science until the 19th century. How could the Dogon have known this? Some researchers argue that the reports were misinterpretations or exaggerations by the anthropologists who recorded them. Others suggest the Dogon may have absorbed this knowledge from contact with modern travelers or traders before it was documented. But there are those who see it as evidence of something more profound, perhaps ancient contact with lost civilizations, or even with knowledge from beyond our world. The cliffs themselves seem to encourage such speculation. Their scale is overwhelming, their silence uncanny. The dwellings are not random. They follow patterns, clusters that suggest careful planning. Some researchers have suggested astronomical alignments, seeing in the positioning of shrines and villages echoes of the Dogon's celestial myths. Whether these connections are intentional or coincidental remains debated. And yet, beyond the fringe theories, even the more grounded mysteries remain unresolved. The Telem's disappearance is one of them. Historical accounts suggest they were either absorbed into neighboring populations or displaced by the Dogon's arrival. But why does their culture leave so few traces outside the cliffs? Were they an isolated group, living only here, vanishing without leaving records or descendants? Or are there still links, hidden in oral traditions waiting to be uncovered? The Dogon, too, preserve secrets. Many of their rituals and myths are transmitted only to initiated members of the community. Outsiders see fragments, masked dances, carved figures, symbolic drawings, but the deeper meanings remain guarded. This secrecy has only added to the air of enigma surrounding the cliffs, inviting speculation about what lies behind the veil of tradition. Standing beneath the Bandiagara escarpment, the scale of the mystery becomes palpable. The cliffs stretch for nearly 150 kilometers, dotted with thousands of sites. Some have been studied, others remain unexplored, their openings staring out like dark eyes over the valley. The knowledge locked within them, artifacts, stories, perhaps entire chapters of history, remains incomplete. Were the Telem simply pragmatic builders, using the cliffs as protection against enemies and the elements? Or did their dwellings reflect something deeper, a cosmological map, a way of connecting the human world to the heavens above? And what of the Dogon's knowledge of Sirius? Was it coincidence, miscommunication, or genuine insight into a truth invisible to most of humanity until modern times? The Bandiagara cliffs refuse to give easy answers. They stand as both monument and mystery, a reminder that human ingenuity and imagination often outpace our ability to explain. In their heights, we see the courage and skill of those who lived here long ago. In their myths, we sense echoes of something vast, something still waiting to be understood. Perhaps the greatest enigma is not whether the Telem or Dogon possessed hidden knowledge, but why their stories continue to resonate so strongly today. What is it about these cliffs that compels us to look up, to wonder about lives lived in impossible places, about stars seen through ancient eyes, and about truths that may forever remain beyond reach? In the silence of Mali's sandstone cliffs, the dwellings endure. Empty windows stare out across the plains, their builders long gone, their meaning still debated. And so we are left with questions, not just about how they were made, but about what they reveal, about humanity, about mystery, and about the possibility that some answers lie forever beyond the grasp of history. From the windswept cliffs of Mali, where the Telem and Dogon once left their marks upon stone, our journey turns once again to the Andes. High in the Peruvian mountains, at more than 3,000 meters above sea level, lies a site that predates both the Inca and the great cities of Mesoamerica. Here, in a narrow valley where rivers converge, stands Chavin de Huantar, a ceremonial center so ancient and so enigmatic that even now it challenges our understanding of the earliest civilizations of South America. At first sight, Chavin is deceptively simple. Terraces, stone walls, and temple complexes spread across a rugged plateau. The structures are made of carefully cut granite and limestone blocks, assembled without mortar, their surfaces darkened by centuries of weather. Yet beneath the surface, hidden within the earth, lies a labyrinth of underground galleries, passageways, and chambers. The effect is unsettling. An architecture not merely for the living, but seemingly designed to blur the boundaries between light and darkness, above and below, the natural and the supernatural. Archaeologists date Chavin to around 1200 BCE, making it one of the earliest major cultures of the Andes. For centuries, it thrived as a religious and political center, drawing pilgrims from hundreds of kilometers away. Here, amid the echoing valleys, a new worldview was being forged, one that shaped the spiritual imagination of generations to come. Central to Chavin's mystery are its carvings and sculptures. Stone stelae and reliefs depict beings that seem both human and animal. Jaguars with snarling fangs, serpents entwined around humanoid faces, birds merging with divine forms. The most famous of these is the Lanzon, a massive granite monolith hidden deep within the temple's underground corridors. Carved with intricate lines, it shows a hybrid deity, part human, part feline, its hair transforming into writhing snakes. In the dim light of a torch, the Lanzon appears almost alive, as if it were meant to intimidate, inspire, or transform those who beheld it. What did these images mean? Scholars suggest that the art of Chavin reflects a complex religious system, one that blended shamanic practices with a cosmology of transformation. The merging of human and animal forms may symbolize the shaman's journey into other realms, aided by hallucinogenic plants that were native to the region. Some carvings show figures holding San Pedro cactus, known for its psychoactive properties. Was Chavin a place where altered states of consciousness were not only accepted, but central to religious life? The architecture of the site seems to reinforce this idea. The underground galleries are designed to disorient, twisting passages, false doorways, and acoustics that distort sound. Imagine a procession of initiates entering these spaces, drums and conch shell trumpets reverberating through stone corridors, flickering torches casting jagged shadows, priests invoking gods whose faces were carved into the very walls. Was this theater of sound and shadow meant to overwhelm the senses, to create the impression of divine presence? Yet, for all we know, there is much we do not. Chavin left no written language. Its legacy comes to us only through architecture, art, and the echoes of traditions that persisted among later Andean cultures. And so we are left to ask, was Chavin the center of a unified state, a powerful theocracy that controlled vast regions? Or was it a pilgrimage site, a kind of Andean Mecca, where people of different tribes and languages gathered to share in rituals that bound them together? There are further puzzles. The Lanzon is placed at the convergence of underground corridors, as though it were the axis of the entire site. Water channels run beneath the temple, engineered to carry rushing torrents during the rainy season. Some researchers believe these channels amplified sound, making the temple roar with the voice of nature itself. Others see in them symbolic meaning, water as a divine force, controlled and directed through sacred architecture. Then there are the claims of alignments. Certain temples appear to be oriented toward specific mountain peaks or celestial events. Did the builders of Chavin design their city as a mirror of the cosmos? Were the priests astronomers as well as shamans, tracking the movement of stars to guide their rituals? Speculation has extended even further. Some fringe theories suggest that the hybrid beings carved in stone represent not myth but memory, encounters with entities beyond the human realm, later mythologized in jaguar and serpent form. Others argue that the advanced stonework, the underground complexity, and the apparent astronomical knowledge hint at a lost civilization whose influence reached far wider than we recognize. The mainstream view remains cautious. Chavin was likely a religious hub, an incubator of Andean culture whose influence can be traced in later societies such as the Moche, Nazca, and Inca. But even within that framework, the enigma endures. Why did the people of Chavin invest such effort in underground spaces? Why did they portray gods with such terrifying, otherworldly faces? And why, after centuries of dominance, did the culture fade, leaving its temples to crumble in silence? Standing today among the ruins, the sense of mystery is profound. The mountains rise sharply around the site, enclosing it like walls of a natural fortress. The air is thin, the sky vast and piercing. Descending into the temple's passageways, you enter a world of darkness where the stone is cold and the silence broken only by your own footsteps. And there, in the heart of the labyrinth, the Lanzon still waits, its fanged face glaring, its serpentine hair writhing in frozen motion, as if guarding secrets meant never to be spoken. Was Chavin de Huantar simply the ceremonial center of an early Andean civilization? Or was it something more? A place where human consciousness itself was shaped and altered, where myth and reality intertwined, and where the boundaries of the possible were tested? The answers are elusive. What remains is a sense of awe, and the haunting awareness that beneath the surface of our history lie entire worlds of thought and belief that we can scarcely imagine. And so, in the Andean highlands, among temples both above and below the earth, the enigma of Chavin lingers. A city without words, yet heavy with meaning. A culture without clear records, yet echoing in stone. A place that asks us not only what was believed here, but what might still be hidden, waiting to be understood. From the sacred valleys of Chavin de Huantar, where underground temples whisper of gods half hidden in shadow, we turn again across the world to the sunlit lands of North Africa. Here, at the edge of the Sahara, a Roman city lies preserved with uncanny clarity. Streets still stretch in perfect order, arches rise against the desert sky, and the ghost of an empire lingers in stone. This is Timgad, often called the Pompeii of North Africa. The first impression is striking. Unlike many ancient ruins which survive as scattered fragments, Timgad retains its entire plan. From above, its grid of streets appears almost mathematical, straight lines intersecting at right angles, dividing the city into neat rectangles. This is not the organic growth of a town shaped by centuries of adaptation. It is the vision of a planner's hand, the imprint of Rome's power etched into foreign soil. Founded around 100 CE under the Emperor Trajan, Timgad was a colony for Roman veterans. Here they were given land, homes, and the promise of a new life on the empire's frontier. But it was more than a settlement. Timgad was propaganda in stone, a model city designed to demonstrate Roman order, Roman prosperity, and Roman control. The forum, the theater, the library, the baths, each element was not only functional but symbolic, a message to both citizens and outsiders that Rome's way of life could be transplanted anywhere. And yet, walking through the ruins today, the sense of mystery emerges. Why here, on the barren edge of the Sahara, was such an elaborate city built? What compelled the empire to invest so heavily in this remote outpost? Was it truly for veterans' comfort, or did Timgad serve deeper purposes? Economic, strategic, or perhaps even spiritual? The layout itself invites speculation. The grid pattern of Timgad reflects the Roman obsession with order, but its precision is startling. Some have argued that the city was aligned with astronomical events. Its decumanus, the main east-west street, appears oriented toward the sunrise on Trajan's birthday. If true, Timgad was not merely a military or civic statement, it was a cosmic one, binding the emperor's power to the heavens. Was this alignment intentional, or is it coincidence born of architectural convenience? The ruins also conceal puzzles about daily life. Archaeologists have uncovered lavish mosaics depicting gods, myths, and scenes of abundance. The library, one of the rare Roman libraries to survive in physical remains, suggests a community deeply engaged with knowledge and culture. But in a desert frontier, far from the bustling centers of Rome, how vibrant was intellectual life? Was Timgad truly the beacon of Roman civilization it was meant to be? Or was its grandeur more facade than reality? Then comes the question of its decline. For centuries, Timgad thrived, even after Rome itself fell. The Vandal invasions, the Byzantine reconquest, and later Arab rule all left traces. But by the 8th century, the city was abandoned, swallowed by the sands of the Sahara. Why? Some point to shifting trade routes, others to pressure from nomadic tribes. Perhaps water scarcity played a role. Yet the suddenness of its disappearance, its perfect grid left intact, its buildings deserted, feels almost as though the city was simply frozen in time. In this silence, legends grew. Local stories spoke of a city cursed, punished for its pride. Others claimed Timgad lay hidden until European explorers rediscovered it in the 19th century, buried not by lava like Pompeii, but by centuries of drifting sand. The desert, it seems, chose to preserve rather than destroy. More speculative voices have gone further. The precision of the city's plan, its apparent astronomical alignments, and its survival in such remarkable condition have led some to suggest that Timgad was more than a Roman outpost. It was part of a deeper tradition of sacred geometry, perhaps connected to other sites across the ancient world. Could the Romans, inheriting knowledge from earlier civilizations, have embedded cosmic principles into their cities? Or is the perfection of Timgad simply the product of Roman engineering, sharpened by ambition and pride? Even the ruins themselves hint at unanswered questions. The theater could seat thousands, yet the surrounding population would have been far smaller. Was it built to project Roman culture outward, to impress neighboring peoples who might never have set foot inside? Or does it reflect a community larger than we assume, perhaps swelling during festivals or gatherings now lost to history? Then there are the inscriptions. One famous carving in the Forum declares, "To hunt, to bathe, to play, to laugh. This is to live." It is both charming and unsettling. Was this a simple motto of leisure, or was it a deliberate expression of Roman philosophy on life, etched here in a place where survival was far from easy? Did it mask the hardships of frontier existence with the illusion of ease? Standing amid the ruins, the paradox of Timgad becomes clear. It is at once perfectly Roman and strangely out of place. A city of marble, arches, and libraries, built on the doorstep of the desert. A place where empire imposed its vision of order, only for the sands to reclaim it centuries later. Was Timgad simply another Roman colony, one among many? Or was it a statement? A deliberate act of defiance against nature, a city meant to proclaim that Rome's order could tame even the wild edge of the Sahara, and what might still lie beneath the dunes. Much of Timgad remains unexcavated. Streets, homes, and artifacts are still buried, awaiting discovery. Could they reveal more about the people who lived here? The veterans, merchants, priests, and families who once called this unlikely city home? Or might they challenge our assumptions entirely, hinting that Timgad's role was more complex than we imagine? The ruins do not answer. They stand in silence, their stones glowing golden in the desert sun, their streets stretching outward as if still waiting for footsteps that will never return. In the end, Timgad is both revelation and riddle, a city perfectly preserved, yet imperfectly understood, a monument to empire but also to mystery. And as the desert wind moves through its arches, we are left to wonder, what does this place still conceal, and why was it built here, on the very edge of the known world? From the sunlit streets of Timgad, where Roman order once pressed against the shifting frontier of the desert, we journey now into a landscape older still, far older. Across Turkey's southeastern plains, in a land where arid hills rise gently against an endless horizon, lie stones that whisper of an age beyond empires, beyond written history itself. This is Karahan Tepe, a site so ancient, so enigmatic, that it challenges not only what we know about the past, but what we believe about the origins of civilization. At first glance, the terrain seems unassuming. Rolling, weathered hills of pale limestone, punctuated by patches of scrub, under a sky that changes little across the seasons. Yet, hidden within this landscape are carved pillars, chambers, and arrangements of stone whose scale and age are staggering. Karahan Tepe is part of a growing constellation of archaeological sites in the Şanlıurfa region, cousins, in a sense, to the now famous Göbekli Tepe. Like its better-known counterpart, Karahan Tepe dates back nearly 12,000 years to the dawn of the Neolithic era. To put that in perspective, these stones were set in place thousands of years before the pyramids of Egypt, thousands of years before the first cities of Mesopotamia. Even before the invention of the wheel or the widespread use of metal, communities here carved monuments that remain standing today. The site itself is vast. Excavations reveal dozens of T-shaped pillars, many decorated with abstract symbols or animal motifs. There are subterranean chambers, some with carved phallic columns and carefully shaped walls, suggesting ceremonial or ritual use. Corridors and enclosures cut directly into bedrock speak of sophisticated planning. Unlike Göbekli Tepe, which appears to have been intentionally buried, Karahan Tepe seems to have weathered the millennia in situ, its stones slowly uncovered by wind, erosion, and now the careful hand of archaeologists. Mainstream archaeology interprets Karahan Tepe as part of an early ritual complex, built by hunter-gatherer groups transitioning toward settled life. In this view, these were sanctuaries or gathering places where people came together, forging new bonds that ultimately gave rise to agriculture and permanent villages. If true, the implications are profound. Religion and ritual may have come before farming, belief before bread. Civilization, in other words, may have been born not from necessity, but from the human imagination reaching toward the sacred. And yet, questions remain. How did small, scattered groups of hunter-gatherers, without metal tools or beasts of burden, carve and transport monoliths weighing many tons? What inspired such labor at a time when survival itself was precarious? Why build monuments of this scale unless something far greater compelled them? The stones themselves provoke wonder. Some pillars bear the shapes of animals, serpents, foxes, birds, etched in shallow relief. Others are plain, but their presence alone is imposing. Were these totems of gods, ancestors, or forces of nature? Or were they abstract, embodying ideas lost to us across the gulf of time. In one chamber, a row of carved pillars creates a narrow, almost claustrophobic passage, leading into a space that feels less like a room than a womb of stone. Was this a place of initiation, where participants underwent symbolic rebirth? Another area features upright columns with pronounced phallic forms, sparking debate among scholars. Were these fertility symbols, ritual objects, or something else entirely? The more we uncover, the deeper the mystery grows. If Karahan Tepe and its sister sites are indeed ritual centers, they push back the timeline of organized religion by millennia. But they also hint at something more elusive, a worldview that bound humans to the cosmos in ways we scarcely understand. Some researchers suggest that alignments within these enclosures may have astronomical significance, pointing to solstices, equinoxes, or the rising of specific stars. If true, it would mean that these ancient builders were not only erecting monuments, but also encoding the sky in stone, a calendar, a temple, and a story all at once. Others point out the resemblance between these megalithic sites and later mythologies across the Near East, as if echoes of these earliest rituals survived for thousands of years in the tales of gods and creation. And then, as with all great mysteries, there are more speculative voices. Could such sophistication have arisen so suddenly, without precedent? Some propose that Karahan Tepe and its neighbors suggest a lost chapter of human history, perhaps an advanced culture swept away by time, or the survivors of a global catastrophe at the end of the Ice Age. Did a forgotten people carry knowledge into this region, seeding the first monumental architecture? Or is this simply the ingenuity of early humans, underestimated because we measure their world by our own assumptions? Even among archaeologists, the questions remain pressing. Why here, in southeastern Turkey, did such a monumental tradition arise? Was this region a cradle of civilization in ways we have yet to recognize? How many more sites like Karahan Tepe still lie buried beneath the hills, their stones waiting for discovery? The excavation continues, but the pace is slow. Each season uncovers new chambers, new pillars, new fragments of an ancient story. Yet for every answer, more questions emerge. The enclosures hint at ceremonies, but not their meaning. The symbols suggest language, but no script survives. The architecture reveals vision, but not the minds behind it. Standing at Karahan Tepe today, the silence is profound. The wind moves across the plateau, carrying with it the faint smell of earth and stone. The pillars rise, weathered yet enduring, their shadows shifting with the sun as they have for 12 millennia. One cannot help but wonder, what did these stones witness? What voices once echoed here, in ritual, in song, in whispered myth? Were these monuments built to honor gods, to mark the heavens, to bind communities together? Or do they represent something even deeper? A moment when humanity first sought to step beyond survival, to carve meaning into the world itself? As the camera lingers on the carved pillars, half in shadow, half in light, the mystery lingers. Karahan Tepe remains both a revelation and a riddle, a window into a time when civilization itself was being imagined, and perhaps a reminder that our story is far older and far stranger than we ever believed. So we are left with the same haunting question that echoes across all great ruins. What might still be hidden beneath the soil, waiting to reshape the history we thought we knew? From the windswept plateaus of Karahan Tepe, where stones from humanity's deep prehistory rise against the Turkish sky, we cross now to the towering Andes of South America. Here, at nearly 9,200 feet above sea level, another mystery waits among the clouds. Carved terraces cling to steep mountain slopes. Massive walls stand with unwavering precision, and stone monoliths, some weighing over 50 tons, rest in quiet defiance of time. This is Ollantaytambo, one of the most enigmatic sites of the Inca world. At first sight, the setting itself overwhelms the senses. The town of Ollantaytambo rests in the sacred valley of Peru, surrounded by jagged peaks that rise like guardians of the past. The terraces step down the mountainside in neat geometric bands of green, while above them looms the fortress temple complex, its walls of finely dressed stone commanding the valley below. To stand here is to feel suspended between earth and sky, between the raw power of nature and the unfathomable will of those who once shaped it. According to established history, Ollantaytambo was both a ceremonial center and a royal estate during the 15th century, built under the rule of the Inca Emperor Pachacuti. It also served as a stronghold during the Spanish conquest, one of the few places where the Inca successfully resisted European forces. Yet even within this accepted framework, questions multiply. The site is extraordinary not only for its strategic location, but for the sheer ambition of its construction. The terraces alone are a marvel, transforming steep and unforgiving slopes into fertile ground. Each level is reinforced with carefully fitted stone walls, designed not only to support soil but also to regulate water, preventing erosion and channeling irrigation. In a land where rainfall is unpredictable and the terrain extreme, this engineering reflects a mastery of environment and adaptation. But it is the upper complex, the temple structures, that holds the greatest mystery. At the heart of Ollantaytambo stands the unfinished Temple of the Sun, a wall of 6 massive monoliths of pink granite, each standing upright, fitted with extraordinary precision. Between them are thin stone spacers, like puzzle pieces locking the great blocks into place. Some of these monoliths weigh as much as 50 tons, quarried not in the valley but on the opposite side of the river, several kilometers away. To reach the temple site, the stones would have had to be dragged across the valley floor, transported up steep slopes, and maneuvered into perfect alignment. How was this achieved, without wheels, without iron tools, and without draft animals strong enough to bear such burdens? The mainstream explanation holds that the Incas used ropes, wooden rollers, and sheer human labor to move the stones, likely aided by ingenious ramps and earthen causeways. Archaeologists have traced possible routes from the quarry, identifying places where stones may have been dragged or levered uphill. But even with this knowledge, the scale of the task is daunting. How many people would it have required? How long would it have taken? And what does this say about the social organization and willpower of the Inca? Then there are the unfinished aspects of Ollantaytambo. Scattered along the quarry path lie abandoned stones, some partially shaped, others broken. Were these left behind due to sudden events, such as war or natural disaster? Did the Spanish invasion halt the work permanently, freezing Ollantaytambo mid-construction? Or does the incompleteness hint at something deeper? An undertaking so ambitious that even the Inca, masters of the Andes, could not bring it fully to fruition. The precision of the stonework deepens the mystery. In some walls, granite blocks are fitted so tightly that not even a sheet of paper can slip between them. This technique, known from other Inca sites such as Sacsayhuamán and Machu Picchu, raises questions about the methods employed. Did the builders carefully chip and polish each block to match its neighbor, testing and refining until the fit was perfect? Or did they use more advanced, now lost techniques of stone shaping? Some speculative theories push further. Could the Incas, or those who came before them, have employed methods of softening stone, using chemical processes unknown to us today? Was sound or vibration harnessed to manipulate heavy blocks, as legends sometimes suggest? Mainstream scholarship finds little evidence for such ideas, but the questions persist because the results seem to defy easy explanation. And this raises another puzzle. Was Ollantaytambo built entirely by the Inca, or did they inherit earlier foundations? The Inca themselves often acknowledge that certain structures predated their empire, attributing them to the work of ancient ancestors. At Ollantaytambo, some stones appear older, weathered differently, or fitted in styles not typical of confirmed Inca work. Could the site represent a layering of civilizations? Inca construction atop a much older foundation? If so, who were the builders that came before, and what knowledge did they possess? Legends offer tantalizing fragments. Local Quechua traditions speak of giants who once moved stones across the land, building structures no ordinary human could. Others tell of Viracocha, a godlike figure who created and instructed humanity before vanishing across the sea. Are these myths simply symbolic, or do they preserve faint memories of forgotten peoples and lost ages? Even the symbolic meaning of Ollantaytambo resists clarity. Was the Temple of the Sun designed to track the heavens, aligning with solstices or equinoxes, embedding cosmic order into stone? Some researchers argue that the positioning of certain walls and windows corresponds to astronomical events, suggesting a fusion of architecture and celestial observation. If true, Ollantaytambo was not merely a fortress or a state. It was a sacred calendar, a bridge between earth and sky. The terraces and temple also seem to embody dualities: practical function alongside ritual significance, military strength alongside spiritual symbolism. Was this duality deliberate, reflecting the Andean worldview in which the material and spiritual were inseparable? Or does it point to layers of meaning we have yet to decipher? As we stand today among the ruins, with mountains looming like silent witnesses and the Vilcabamba River winding through the valley below, the unanswered questions seem to echo off the stone itself. Why was such effort poured into a site left unfinished? What knowledge allowed the transportation and fitting of immense monoliths? And were the Inca the sole architects or inheritors of a legacy far older? Ollantaytambo leaves us with impressions rather than conclusions, the awe of human ingenuity, the possibility of forgotten techniques, and the enduring sense that the Andes hold secrets not yet revealed. The stones are mute, yet they seem to press upon us a quiet question. Do we truly understand the depth of our past, or are we only glimpsing fragments of a much greater story? And perhaps, like the abandoned stones along the quarry path, our understanding of Ollantaytambo remains incomplete, waiting for future discoveries to move it forward, to shift the weight of mystery closer to truth. From the high terraces of Ollantaytambo, where colossal stones gaze silently over the sacred valley of Peru, we journey now across oceans and continents to the rugged highlands of Ethiopia. Here, nearly 8,000 feet above sea level, lies a city of stone unlike any other in the world. At first sight, the landscape appears stark and ancient, a dry plateau of red volcanic rock broken by gullies and ravines. But hidden within that very rock are structures so extraordinary, so otherworldly in their conception, that even today they stir both reverence and mystery. This is Lalibela, a place where entire churches were not built in the conventional sense, but carved directly downward into the living stone. Hewn from the earth itself, the 11 medieval churches of Lalibela stand not upon the land, but within it. Sunken courtyards revealing towers, walls, doorways, and windows, all sculpted from a single piece of rock. To descend into these courtyards is to step into another world, one that feels both impossibly human and eerily divine. According to tradition, these churches were commissioned in the late 12th or early 13th century by King Lalibela of the Zagwe dynasty, who sought to create a new Jerusalem in response to the Muslim conquest of the Holy Land. Pilgrimage to Jerusalem had become dangerous, and so, it is said, God inspired Lalibela to replicate its sacred geography here in Ethiopia. Streams were named after the Jordan River, and the churches were arranged to echo biblical sites. The devotion required for such an undertaking is unquestionable, but the scale of the project raises profound questions. Carving a single freestanding church into volcanic tuff would have been a monumental task. Carving 11, interconnected by tunnels, passageways, and courtyards, seems almost beyond belief. Estimates suggest that thousands of workers would have been needed, laboring with hand tools over decades. Yet legends tell a different story. Ethiopian tradition holds that the construction was aided by angels who worked at night, doubling the progress achieved by human hands during the day. Some claim the churches were not merely built but revealed, that they were always within the rock, waiting to be uncovered. Could such myths conceal fragments of truth? Were the builders using techniques now forgotten, or knowledge that allowed them to shape the stone with speed and precision that defies our assumptions? The most iconic of these churches, Beta Georgis, or the Church of St. George, embodies the mystery most vividly. From above, its roof reveals the shape of a perfect cross, carved with geometric clarity into the earth. Descending through a narrow passage, one emerges into a sunken courtyard, where the church rises free on all four sides, as though an architect had imagined a cathedral and then extracted it whole from the ground. No scaffolding, no brick-by-brick construction, just the subtraction of matter until the vision emerged. Was this purely the product of inspired faith and extraordinary patience? Or does the method itself hold secrets we have yet to rediscover? The interiors are no less remarkable. Columns and arches rise within dimly lit chambers, their surfaces bearing both the chisel marks of artisans and the patina of centuries of worship. Frescoes adorn walls, though many are faint with age, depicting biblical scenes and saints revered in Ethiopian orthodoxy. Pilgrims still gather here, their chants echoing through the rock-cut halls, merging the ancient with the living. Unlike many archaeological sites, Lalibela is not a relic frozen in time. It remains an active center of devotion, where history and present faith intertwine. And yet, archaeology offers as many puzzles as answers. Radiocarbon dating of organic remains suggests that some of the churches may be older than the reign of King Lalibela himself. Could he have inherited structures already begun, or even completed by earlier rulers? Some scholars argue that parts of the site show architectural influences from Aksumite traditions, pointing to a continuity of stone carving across centuries. Others wonder whether contact with faraway Christian centers, perhaps even Byzantine or Near Eastern, inspired the design. Still, the precision of the work defies easy explanation. Narrow tunnels connect churches, some aligned with symbolic pathways of pilgrimage. Water channels run through the complex, ensuring both practical drainage and symbolic reference to the River Jordan. Was this intricate design achieved purely through careful planning, or was there a deeper cosmological vision guiding it, a vision in which architecture mirrored the heavens, embedding sacred geometry into the very earth? Speculative theories abound. Some propose that Lalibela's builders possessed advanced knowledge of stone-cutting techniques now lost to history. Others see in the churches echoes of ancient monuments far older, suggesting that Ethiopia may have preserved traditions of sacred architecture stretching back to forgotten times. The legends of angelic assistance, while often dismissed as pious embellishment, might symbolically reflect processes we do not yet understand. Were the workers employing natural properties of the volcanic rock in ways we have overlooked? Or does Lalibela stand as proof of what faith and collective willpower can achieve, even against the hardest of stone? And beyond the question of construction lies the deeper enigma of purpose. If Lalibela was meant to be a New Jerusalem, was it solely a response to the geopolitical upheavals of the 12th century? Or was it also a statement of Ethiopia's place in the Christian world, a declaration that it too was a holy land, chosen and sanctified. The arrangement of the churches into two groups, symbolizing earthly and heavenly Jerusalem, suggests layers of meaning. Was this sacred geography intended merely for worshippers, or did it encode a more profound vision of cosmic order? Standing among these rock-hewn sanctuaries, the impression is haunting. The silence of the courtyards, the shadows clinging to carved doorways, the faint echo of prayers sung in Ge'ez, the ancient liturgical language, all combine to create a space suspended between time and eternity. The churches feel at once human and inhuman, the product of hands, yes, but also of an ambition and devotion so immense it seems to belong to another realm. And so the questions remain. How were these monuments carved with such precision? Did King Lalibela truly oversee their construction, or was he merely a guardian of older mysteries? What knowledge of stone, of symbolism, of sacred design was lost in the centuries that followed? The rock-hewn churches of Lalibela endure as both place of worship and riddle of history. Their walls testify to the devotion of a people and the resilience of a culture. But they also remind us that faith can drive humanity to achievements that blur the boundary between the possible and the impossible. Perhaps in the end, Lalibela is meant to remain a mystery, not to be solved, but to be experienced. For as the pilgrims still whisper in prayer within these carved sanctuaries, one cannot help but wonder, are these churches the work of human hands alone? Or are they, as tradition claims, the meeting point of earth and heaven, stone and spirit, mortal effort, and something far beyond? From the volcanic plateaus of Ethiopia, where faith and stone merge into labyrinthine sanctuaries at Lalibela, our journey now carries us across the Mediterranean Sea to a small island nation steeped in history and mystery. Malta. Here, in the heart of the Mediterranean, rise some of the oldest freestanding stone structures in the world, the megalithic temples of Malta, whose origins, purpose, and methods of construction continue to captivate archaeologists and travelers alike. Approaching the temples, the landscape appears deceptively serene. Rolling hills and scrubby plains stretch toward the horizon, interrupted by fields and modern villages. But in certain pockets, the earth is broken by massive stones arranged in curving enclosures that defy both expectation and explanation. These megaliths, some weighing tens of tons, stand as monuments to an era more than 5,000 years removed from our own, a time when the earliest farmers of Malta were shaping stone into forms that would endure millennia. The temples themselves are breathtaking. Sites like Hagar Cheam, Manajdra, and Tarxian feature enormous limestone blocks, some meticulously dressed, some raw and monolithic, arranged in circular and elliptical plans. Interiors contain altars, carved stone benches, and porthole-like openings, often oriented with astonishing precision to the rising and setting sun. During solstices, shafts of sunlight penetrate the temple chambers, illuminating altars or doorways in ways that suggest both design and intention. Was this the work of careful observation of the heavens? A sacred calendar encoded in stone? Or coincidence magnified over centuries? Mainstream archaeology places these structures between 3,600 and 2,500 BCE, predating the pyramids of Egypt and Stonehenge. Their builders were Neolithic farmers, yet they accomplished feats that challenge modern understanding, transporting massive stones without draft animals, lifting them into place, and arranging them with architectural sophistication that would be remarkable even in later civilizations. How was such precision achieved, and why devote so much effort to these sites? The purpose of the temples continues to spark debate. Many scholars agree that they were centers of ritual and worship, possibly linked to fertility, agriculture, and cosmology. Figurines resembling pregnant women and symbols of life and abundance have been unearthed, hinting at a culture deeply concerned with the cycles of birth, growth, and death. But beyond these clues, the temples retain an aura of mystery. Why carve chambers and passageways into stone in such elaborate layouts? Why align certain openings with celestial events while leaving others seemingly arbitrary? The layout itself is enigmatic. The temples are not uniformly planned, yet a sense of deliberate structure emerges. Some appear to form pairs or complexes, connected symbolically or geographically. Certain chambers contain carved altars and troughs, suggesting ritual activity, while other spaces seem purely architectural, serving no immediately apparent practical purpose. What guided these builders? Was it purely spiritual, or did they possess knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, or acoustics that we no longer understand? The persistence of the megaliths, their survival over 5 millennia, adds another layer of fascination. The stones have endured weathering, earthquakes, and human intervention, yet remain in place, preserving their mystery for modern eyes. Some of the blocks are carved with motifs, spirals, concentric circles, and abstract shapes whose meaning remains undeciphered. Are these early symbols of a proto-writing system or purely decorative? Could they encode rituals, astronomical observations, or even the names of those who built them? Then there are the questions of construction. Some stones weigh more than 20 tons, yet were moved across uneven terrain and positioned with remarkable stability. Archaeologists suggest that ramps, levers, and coordinated human labor were likely employed, yet the exact methods remain speculative. Could Neolithic engineers have discovered techniques now lost to history? Or does the challenge exceed the capabilities of a small island population of farmers? Speculative theories have taken hold over the centuries. Some argue that the temples were the product of an advanced, perhaps forgotten civilization, one with technological knowledge we can barely imagine. Others suggest ritual or astronomical alignment so precise that it hints at sacred geometry or encoded knowledge of the cosmos. While these ideas remain controversial, they underscore the enduring sense of wonder the temples inspire. Equally puzzling is the rapid rise and fall of the temple-building culture. Archaeological evidence suggests that these sites were constructed, used, and eventually abandoned within a millennium. After their desertion, the knowledge of how to build on such a scale seems to have disappeared from Malta. Why did this culture flourish with such sophistication and then vanish so completely? Were environmental changes, resource depletion, or social upheavals responsible? Or did the purpose of the temples cease to be relevant, leaving them as silent monuments for later generations to ponder? The temples also speak to the human need for continuity and permanence. Unlike houses or tombs, which served practical needs or marked individual lives, these structures were designed to endure, to outlast the people who built them, to convey meaning across millennia. They reflect an awareness of time and mortality that resonates even today, inviting reflection on our own civilizations and the traces we leave behind. Even today, the temples continue to reveal subtle mysteries. Orientation, geometry, and alignment suggest deliberate astronomical observation, yet without written records, we cannot know the intentions behind them. Certain chambers carry acoustic properties that may have amplified sound, perhaps for rituals or chants. Was this an early understanding of physics, or a happy accident? Walking among the stones, one cannot help but feel a sense of scale and ambition that transcends the ordinary. The megaliths dwarf modern visitors, yet their arrangement suggests an intelligence attuned not only to practical considerations, but to spiritual and cosmic concerns. Each curve, each doorway, each alignment hints at knowledge or vision that has not survived, except in the stone itself. So we are left with questions that endure as the stones do. How did these Neolithic farmers achieve such architectural mastery? What knowledge guided the design, transport, and construction of these enormous blocks? Were the temples purely ritual centers, or did they serve as repositories of knowledge, or perhaps both? And finally, why did this extraordinary culture vanish so completely, leaving behind only monuments and mystery? The megalithic temples of Malta endure as silent witnesses to a distant past. They are at once monumental and intimate, practical and symbolic, human and otherworldly. Like Lalibela, they are places where stone, labor, and vision converge to create something beyond ordinary comprehension. Yet, unlike Lalibela, they lie abandoned, their rituals and builders lost to time, their purpose largely inscrutable. In the end, the temples challenge us not merely to study them, but to wonder. What drove these early builders to move stones that weighed more than men could lift? What knowledge guided their hands, their vision, and their devotion? And how much of human ingenuity, so vast, so precise, so daring, remains buried beneath the soil of history, waiting for discovery? Standing among the limestone blocks, one is left with the same awe that must have struck generations across millennia. Here, on a tiny island in the Mediterranean, humanity reached for permanence, for meaning, and perhaps for the divine itself. And even today, the megalithic temples of Malta keep their secrets, inviting us to ponder not just their history, but the enduring mystery of human ambition and imagination. From the stone enclosures of the megalithic temples of Malta, where Neolithic hands shaped blocks to touch the heavens, our journey turns once again to a land of monumental devotion, this time to the fertile banks of the Nile. South of modern Luxor, bathed in the golden light of Egypt's timeless desert sun, rises one of the most remarkable and best-preserved temples of the ancient world, the Temple of Edfu, dedicated to the falcon-headed god Horus. Its massive walls, monumental pylons, and intricate reliefs speak across millennia, inviting us to step into the rhythm of a civilization that has long fascinated historians, mystics, and travelers alike. Approaching the temple, the scale is immediately arresting. Two immense pylons dominate the entrance, rising over 36 meters into the sky, their surfaces carved with hieroglyphs that depict divine battles, ritual processions, and the eternal order of the cosmos. Beyond them stretches a courtyard lined with massive columns, each carved in perfect proportion, leading the eye toward the inner sanctum, where the heart of worship once throbbed. The structure feels both imposing and deliberate, a stone embodiment of cosmic order, designed to impress and intimidate in equal measure. Construction of the Temple of Edfu began in 237 BCE during the Ptolemaic dynasty and took roughly 180 years to complete. Its precise stonework and towering pylons reflect the sophistication of Egyptian engineering, yet the sheer scale and ambition of the project raise questions that have long fascinated scholars. How could a city-state, limited in population and resources, sustain such a monumental endeavor over nearly 2 centuries? And why, in an age of shifting empires, was such meticulous care given to a temple far upriver from the bustling heart of Ptolemaic Egypt? Inside, the reliefs and inscriptions reveal both the mundane and the divine. Scenes of offerings, royal decrees, and ritual activities interlace with depictions of Horus vanquishing his eternal adversary, Seth, the embodiment of chaos. Here, myth and political ideology merge, asserting the power of kingship while reinforcing the divine order. Yet, the carvings themselves provoke further inquiry. The precision, scale, and complexity of these hieroglyphs suggest a level of planning, skill, and perhaps even astronomical awareness that modern observers can scarcely imagine. Were the temple's alignments and internal chambers designed to correspond with celestial events, or to amplify ritual sound and light in ways we are only beginning to understand? The temple also raises questions about construction techniques. The massive stones, quarried locally, were cut and positioned with near-perfect accuracy, forming interlocking joints that have survived earthquakes, floods, and centuries of weathering. Some blocks weigh tens of tons, yet show no obvious traces of cranes or metal tools. How did the Egyptians move and fit them so precisely? And why was such labor expended on walls and pylons that, while beautiful, serve no apparent structural necessity? Some suggest that these elements were as much symbolic as practical, statements of power, devotion, and cosmic order, rendered in stone. One of the most intriguing aspects of Edfu is its underground complex, largely hidden beneath the main temple floor. These subterranean passages and storage chambers hint at secret rituals and esoteric knowledge, though much remains inaccessible or unexplored. Were these areas used for initiations, for safeguarding sacred objects, or for ceremonies meant only for the most elite priests? And if so, what knowledge did these priests possess? Knowledge that has been lost over 2 millennia. Speculation extends even further. Some researchers have suggested that the temple encodes astronomical and calendrical information. Certain pylons and columns appear aligned with the rising and setting of specific stars, including those associated with agricultural cycles along the Nile. Could the builders have been recording the cosmos in stone, embedding their understanding of time, seasons, and celestial order into the very architecture? If so, the temple becomes not merely a center of worship, but a physical calendar, a fusion of sacred space and scientific observation. Yet there are mysteries that resist explanation. Unlike the pyramids, which are tombs with relatively straightforward functions, Edfu's temples served multiple roles: ritual, administrative, educational, and symbolic. Reliefs depict offerings of incense, grain, and wine, but also detailed rites of purification and spiritual initiation. Was there an esoteric aspect of worship here, meant only for those initiated into secret knowledge? And how much of that understanding has been irretrievably lost, leaving us with carvings whose meaning we can only partially reconstruct? The symbolism of Horus, central to Edfu, further deepens the intrigue. Horus was not merely a deity. He embodied kingship, divine justice, and the cyclical struggle between order and chaos. The mythological battles between Horus and Seth carved along the walls are not only stories, they are coded statements about cosmic principles, political power, and the nature of life itself. Did the temple serve as a place where these principles were enacted ritually, shaping the spiritual consciousness of the people as much as asserting royal authority? Some scholars have even noted parallels between Edfu and other ancient sites worldwide, suggesting that monumental religious architecture may share universal principles: alignment with celestial bodies, the embedding of myth into architecture, and the creation of spaces that evoke awe and transcendence. Could there have been knowledge transmitted, consciously or unconsciously, across cultures separated by oceans and centuries? Or is this convergence a reflection of the innate human drive to connect the earthly and the divine through monumental construction? Walking through the temple today, the effect is profound. The air is still, heavy with centuries of devotion, while the sunlight filters through narrow gaps, illuminating carvings that have survived unscathed for millennia. The space feels alive, a bridge between the temporal and the eternal, as though the stones themselves retain the resonance of chants, prayers, and sacred music once performed within these walls. And yet, as with all enduring mysteries, the questions outweigh the answers. How much of Edfu's purpose was practical, and how much symbolic? Were the temple's alignments, carvings, and chambers designed according to principles we no longer understand? And perhaps most tantalizingly, what knowledge, lost to time, did the priests and builders of Edfu possess that enabled them to craft a structure so monumental, so precise, and so enduring? The Temple of Edfu reminds us that human ambition, devotion, and ingenuity can reach staggering heights. Here, at the edge of the Nile, the Ptolemaic builders created not just a temple, but a story written in stone, a story of gods, kings, and the eternal struggle between order and chaos. Yet, for all we know, much of that story remains unread, hidden in the subtleties of carvings, alignments, and spaces inaccessible to the casual observer. Perhaps, like the secrets of Lalibela or Malta, Edfu's true meaning lies in its unanswered questions. It is a testament to the ingenuity of the past, a record of faith, and a riddle that challenges our understanding of history. As the desert wind moves across the temple's pylons and the Nile reflects the golden light, one cannot help but wonder what has been lost to time and what might still be hidden, waiting to illuminate the minds of those who seek it. From the sunlit pylons and carved reliefs of the Temple of Edfu, where the Nile's waters have mirrored human devotion for millennia, we journey westward along the northern edge of Africa, toward the Atlantic coast. Here, atop a hill overlooking the modern city of Larache in Morocco, lie the Lixus ruins, an ancient settlement whose stones whisper of civilizations long vanished, yet whose presence continues to inspire wonder. The first impression is striking. Lixus occupies a dramatic position, perched above the Lukos River estuary, where rolling hills meet the tides. From this vantage, one can imagine ancient mariners navigating the Atlantic, guided by the gleam of stone towers and terraces, a beacon of civilization against the vast horizon. Today, the ruins are quiet, overgrown with shrubs and wild grass, yet the scale of what once existed is undeniable. Terraces cut into the hillside, fragments of walls, and the outlines of temples and baths hint at a city that was both vibrant and sophisticated. Lixus is believed to have been founded as early as the 12th century BCE, possibly by the Phoenicians, though later Carthaginian and Roman influences are unmistakable. The city became an important hub of trade, linking the Mediterranean with sub-Saharan Africa. Archaeological remains suggest a society skilled in metallurgy, agriculture, and maritime commerce, yet despite its prominence, much about Lixus remains unresolved. What drove its founders to this particular promontory? How did its strategic position shape its development? And why, after centuries of occupation, did the city ultimately decline and fade from historical prominence? The ruins themselves are enigmatic. Excavations have uncovered urban layouts suggesting deliberate planning, streets aligned along natural terraces, residential quarters, and public spaces with foundations large enough to support monumental architecture. There are traces of temples, some dedicated to deities such as Baal-Hamon and Tanit, reflecting the influence of Phoenician and Carthaginian culture. Artifacts, including pottery, coins, and inscriptions, speak to the city's wealth and its connections across the Mediterranean. Yet much remains hidden, buried under centuries of sediment and vegetation, leaving the full extent of Lixus tantalizingly out of reach. One of the most intriguing elements is the apparent blend of cultures evident at the site. Phoenician symbols sit alongside Roman architectural techniques, and local Berber influences appear woven into both design and material culture. Was Lixus a meeting point of civilizations, a cosmopolitan hub where ideas, rituals, and technologies converged? Or was it primarily a commercial outpost whose grandeur has been amplified by later mythology and the survival of monumental remains? Mainstream archaeology offers some explanations. Scholars point to trade as the driving force behind Lixus's growth. A city positioned to control river access and facilitate the export of valuable goods, including fish, dye, and agricultural produce. Roman writers described it as a fertile and prosperous location, notable for its gardens and orchards. Yet these accounts, written centuries after the city's foundation, provide only a partial window. How much of Lixus's prominence was due to strategic geography, and how much to something less tangible, ritual, religious authority, or political innovation? The topography itself poses questions. The terraces carved into the hillsides, some supporting walls and buildings, display a sophistication in engineering that challenges assumptions about early Phoenician and Punic urban planning. Were these terraces designed solely for practical purposes, such as defense and flood control, or did they also carry symbolic meaning, creating a hierarchy of sacred and secular spaces? Archaeologists continue to debate whether certain features, such as subterranean passages or cisterns, were functional, ritualistic, or both. Adding to the mystery are the legends surrounding Lixus. Classical sources and local lore speak of it as one of the legendary cities tied to the myths of Hercules and the Garden of the Hesperides. According to some traditions, the city's walls contained gardens with golden apples, guarded by divine or semi-divine figures. While historians caution against literal interpretation, the persistence of these stories hints at a deeper cultural significance. Could there be a kernel of truth embedded in the myths? Did the city host sacred gardens or temples that inspired tales of wonder across the Mediterranean? The Romans, too, left their mark. Lixus became an important outpost under Roman control, with baths, administrative buildings, and roads linking it to other parts of Mauritania, Tingitana. Inscriptions from this period attest to civic organization, trade regulation, and the presence of a diverse population. Yet even in Roman times, the city was partially abandoned and rebuilt multiple times. What caused these cycles of occupation and desertion? Were they the result of environmental change, economic decline, or political upheaval? Speculative theories take us further. Some researchers have suggested that Lixus's prominence in myth and history reflects a hidden dimension of its function, perhaps as a center of esoteric knowledge, ritual, or sacred practice. Could certain architectural alignments correspond to astronomical or calendrical phenomena, marking solstices or equinoxes for religious ceremonies? Might the city's terraces and sacred precincts have encoded cosmological principles, linking river, land, and sky in ways that we are only beginning to perceive? Archaeological investigation is challenging, due in part to natural erosion, urban expansion, and the passage of time. Much of the city remains unexcavated, buried beneath soil, vegetation, and modern structures. Even the areas that have been uncovered present tantalizing questions. Some walls are constructed with precise polygonal masonry, others with irregular stones, suggesting different phases of construction or varying influences. How much of the city's original plan is hidden? How many temples, altars, or ceremonial spaces remain undiscovered? Silent witnesses to lives and beliefs long forgotten. Standing amidst the ruins today, the effect is profound. One can imagine the bustle of Lixus's streets, the traders arriving by river, the priests performing rituals in sacred precincts, the gardens flourishing on terraces above the estuary. Yet these echoes are faint, almost imperceptible beneath the wind and the cries of birds. The stones are silent, but they hold memory of human ingenuity, ambition, and the inexorable passage of time. Ultimately, Lixus presents a paradox. On one hand, it is a tangible site, its walls and terraces attesting to centuries of occupation, planning, and cultural blending. On the other, it is elusive, its full story hidden in soil and legend, its origins and significance partially obscured, its myths intertwined with its material remains. It asks us not only to reconstruct its history, but to confront the limitations of our knowledge. Was Lixus merely a strategic commercial hub, or did it hold deeper spiritual, cultural, or cosmological significance? Did its terraces and monumental architecture encode knowledge lost to time? And what of the legends that link it to divine gardens and heroes of myth? Were these tales metaphorical, or do they hint at truths now obscured beneath centuries of sediment, stone, and silence? The Lixus ruins endure as both history and mystery, a place where earth and river, stone and myth converge. They remind us that ancient cities were more than functional spaces. They were vessels of belief, ambition, and imagination, shaped by hands that are now long gone, yet whose work challenges and inspires us still. As the wind sweeps across the estuary and sunlight glints off weathered stone, one cannot help but wonder, what secrets remain buried here, waiting to be revealed? From the wind-swept estuary of Lixus, where the Atlantic kisses ancient Moroccan hills and stones whisper of trade, legend, and lost knowledge, our journey now returns to the towering Andes of South America. Here, jagged peaks rise like the spines of the earth itself, wrapped in mist and cloud, and hidden among them are monuments to a civilization whose mastery of stone, landscape, and society remains unparalleled: the Inca. The sites of Sacsayhuamán and Machu Picchu are among the most extraordinary achievements of this empire, standing as silent witnesses to ingenuity, ambition, and mystery. Sacsayhuamán dominates the outskirts of modern Cusco, the heart of the Inca Empire. From a distance, its massive walls rise in jagged, almost serrated formations, fitting together enormous stones with such precision that even a single sheet of paper cannot be inserted between them. The scale is staggering. Blocks weighing over 100 tons, quarried from nearby hills, transported across difficult terrain, and then shaped and fitted without mortar. What drove the Incas to achieve such perfection? Was it simply military necessity, or something more profound? A statement of power, a devotion to the gods, or an understanding of cosmic order? Historians generally agree that Sacsayhuamán served as both a fortress and ceremonial complex. Its terraces offered defensive advantage, overlooking the city below, while its plazas and platforms may have hosted religious festivals, military drills, and astronomical observations. Yet much remains uncertain. Some scholars suggest that the arrangement of stones reflects advanced knowledge of structural engineering, perhaps to withstand earthquakes that frequently shake the region. Others wonder whether certain stones were deliberately placed to align with celestial events, echoing a worldview in which architecture, astronomy, and spirituality were inseparable. The mysteries multiply when we consider the methods. The Incas had no iron tools, no wheels, and no draft animals capable of hauling such immense stones. Yet they quarried, transported, and positioned them with extraordinary precision. Were they leveraging levers, ramps, and sheer human labor? Were their techniques now lost to time, methods that enabled them to move blocks over uneven terrain with such apparent ease? Some speculative theories propose that vibration, sound, or lubrication might have been used, though these ideas remain controversial. Still, the result is undeniable: a fortress of such monumental scale and sophistication that it challenges modern engineering. From Sacsayhuamán, the journey into the Andes descends toward Machu Picchu, the famed lost city of the Incas, perched on a narrow ridge over the Urubamba River. Emerging from cloud forest mist, the site unfolds with breathtaking clarity. Terraces cascade down steep mountainsides, while temples, plazas, and residences are laid out with an almost geometric precision. Here, as in Sacsayhuamán, stonework is extraordinary. Blocks of granite are cut and fitted so precisely that their edges appear sculpted to interlock naturally. The craftsmanship conveys not only aesthetic beauty, but also structural resilience in a region prone to landslides and seismic activity. Machu Picchu presents profound questions about purpose and planning. Why was this city constructed in such an inaccessible location, hidden among clouds and crags? Scholars suggest it may have been a royal estate for Pachacuti, the Inca emperor who expanded the empire, and a ceremonial site dedicated to the sun god Inti. Yet the precision of its design, the alignment of temples with solstices, and the sophisticated hydraulic systems indicate a complexity that surpasses mere practicality. How did the Incas plan such an extraordinary city without written records in the conventional sense? What knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and environmental engineering guided their vision? The terraces themselves hold multiple layers of meaning. They provided agricultural space, helping to feed the inhabitants of the city, but they also stabilized the mountainside and may have reflected a spiritual harmony with the surrounding landscape. Some researchers argue that the very form of Machu Picchu echoes the contours of nearby mountains, suggesting an intimate integration of human construction with natural topography. Was this alignment deliberate? A symbolic manifestation of the Inca worldview in which earth, sky, and civilization were intertwined? Water management at Machu Picchu is equally remarkable. Ingenious channels and fountains ensured a continuous supply of fresh water, while drainage systems minimized erosion. The Incas carved channels directly into granite, sometimes linking them to sacred or ceremonial areas. Were these hydraulic systems purely functional, or did they serve a ritualistic purpose as well, imbuing water, an element of life and purification, with spiritual significance? Despite extensive research, many aspects of both Sacsayhuamán and Machu Picchu remain mysterious. Some stones in the upper terraces of Machu Picchu appear unfinished, left in place without carving, suggesting construction was interrupted or that certain areas were intentionally left incomplete. Could these choices reflect practical limitations, or do they carry symbolic meaning lost to time? Furthermore, the sheer density and scale of labor required to construct these sites suggest a highly organized society with social structures capable of mobilizing thousands of workers. How did the Incas coordinate such monumental efforts without written administrative systems as we understand them today? Speculative theories abound. Some suggest that Sacsayhuamán and Machu Picchu encode knowledge of celestial cycles, serving as observatories as much as cities. Others propose that the Incas inherited knowledge from earlier cultures, building upon foundations laid by mysterious predecessors in the Andes. And there are those who consider the sites as more than functional or ceremonial spaces, perhaps as centers of esoteric wisdom, sacred geometry, or cosmic alignment, intended to link humanity, the gods, and the natural world in a tangible, enduring form. Standing today amid the terraces and stonework, the effect is profound. The Andes stretch endlessly, clouds drifting through the valleys, casting light and shadow across the ruins. Every corner, every wall, and every plaza seems to demand contemplation. One can almost sense the rhythm of the past. Laborers hauling stones up steep slopes, priests conducting rituals in temples aligned to the heavens, and rulers overseeing the realization of a vision that spanned generations. And yet, the voices of those who built these marvels are silent, leaving us to interpret their intentions through observation, measurement, and imagination. Both Sacsayhuamán and Machu Picchu challenge our assumptions about what is possible in pre-industrial civilizations. They demonstrate a mastery of stone, landscape, and organization that continues to astonish engineers, historians, and travelers alike. They are at once utilitarian and sacred, defensive and ceremonial, monumental and integrated with their natural environment. And they leave us with questions as enduring as the stones themselves. How did the Incas achieve such extraordinary feats without modern tools? What knowledge guided their alignment, construction, and spatial planning? And perhaps most intriguingly, how much of their understanding of astronomy, engineering, or spirituality remains hidden, encoded in walls, terraces, and temples, waiting to be rediscovered. The Inca sites of Sacsayhuamán and Machu Picchu endure as testaments to ambition, devotion, and ingenuity. They are monuments not merely to human skill, but to imagination, planning, and the capacity to shape the natural world in harmony with the cosmos. And while we have uncovered much about their history, their construction, and their society, their full story remains elusive. In the shadows of the Andes, among stones hewn with care and precision, the mystery endures, a silent challenge to our understanding, inviting us to explore, wonder, and seek knowledge that, for now, remains just beyond our grasp. From the mist-cloaked peaks of the Andes, where the Inca carved temples and terraces into mountainsides with astounding precision, we journey across continents and seas to the rolling hills of eastern Georgia. Here, along the banks of the Mekvari River, lies a city hewn from stone, ancient beyond imagination, where humans once carved homes, halls, and temples directly into the living rock. This is al-Bint, a city whose name roughly translates as the Lord's Fortress, yet whose mysteries extend far beyond the simple implications of a defensive stronghold. The first view of al-Bint is mesmerizing. Rising from the hill like a sculpted behemoth, the cave complex stretches over several hectares, its terraces and tunnels carved with meticulous care. The warm hues of sandstone glow under the sun, revealing stairways, corridors, and openings that wind in patterns both practical and enigmatic. From the outside, it appears as an organic extension of the hill itself. From within, it becomes a labyrinth, a city suspended between earth and sky, where the human touch has reshaped natural stone into a functional and symbolic environment. Scholars date al-Bint's origins to as early as the first millennium BCE, making it one of the oldest urban centers in the Caucasus. Its long history spans multiple eras, from pagan rituals to early Christian influence, reflecting a civilization adept at adaptation, yet retaining traces of its original grandeur. The city's design, terraces connected by staircases, halls with vaulted ceilings, and secret chambers, suggests a sophisticated understanding of both architecture and social organization. How did such knowledge emerge in this region, and why carve so extensively into rock rather than constructing traditional freestanding buildings? One of the most striking features of al-Bint is its combination of residential, ceremonial, and defensive spaces. Large halls may have served as meeting places or temples, while smaller chambers functioned as living quarters, storage, or perhaps spaces for secretive practices. The scale of some halls, with ceilings supported by massive rock pillars, hints at a community capable of mobilizing substantial labor and resources. How did this society organize such monumental projects, particularly in an era long before modern tools and machinery? Religious and cultural elements permeate the site. Carvings, altars, and niches suggest ritual significance, yet the full meaning of these features remains elusive. Pagan iconography hints at sun worship and fertility rites, while later Christian influences are visible in carved crosses and adapted spaces. This layered history raises fascinating questions. Did the early inhabitants of al-Bint incorporate astronomical observations or sacred geometry into their carvings? Were some chambers aligned with celestial events, as seen in other ancient cultures? And if so, what knowledge guided their design? The practical ingenuity of al-Bint cannot be overstated. Complex water channels, cisterns, and ventilation shafts suggest advanced engineering that ensured the city could sustain a substantial population. In a climate prone to both heat and occasional flooding, controlling water would have been essential. Yet the integration of these systems within carved rock demonstrates foresight and technical skill. Could these hydraulic solutions also have held symbolic meaning, linking life-sustaining water to ritual practice? Yet, despite centuries of study, many aspects of al-Bint remain unresolved. The purpose of certain chambers is hotly debated. Some scholars propose ceremonial use, others suggest administrative or defensive roles. Some halls show signs of rapid abandonment or incomplete construction. Did external threats drive people to leave, or was there a gradual decline linked to economic or environmental shifts? And why did the city, once a vibrant hub of culture and trade, fade into obscurity for centuries, its secrets buried in stone? Speculative theories add another layer of intrigue. Some suggest that al-Bint's design incorporates astronomical alignments, potentially linking temples and halls to solstices or lunar cycles. Could the city have functioned not just as a living space, but as a cosmic calendar, encoding knowledge about time, seasons, and celestial movements? Others posit that certain chambers may have been used for esoteric practices, perhaps by priestly classes guarding knowledge of rituals, astronomy, or local cosmology. While these ideas remain debated, they underscore the enduring fascination the site evokes. The scale and precision of the stonework raise further questions about technique. Large blocks were carved and positioned with remarkable accuracy, their surfaces smoothed and edges aligned in ways that suggest careful planning and craftsmanship. How did the builders achieve such precision without iron tools or sophisticated lifting equipment? Did they develop methods now lost to history, techniques that allowed them to manipulate rock with extraordinary efficiency? Or is there a deeper, more symbolic logic to their work, where functionality and ritual are inseparably intertwined? al-Bint's position above the river valley amplifies both its strategic and mystical significance. The city's terraces offer sweeping views, a natural vantage for defense, but also a dramatic connection to the landscape. The surrounding hills, river bends, and horizons may have informed spiritual practice, situating the city within a network of sacred geography. Was this location chosen purely for practical reasons, or did it hold spiritual resonance for its inhabitants? A place where earth, water, and sky converge in a deliberate tableau of cosmic meaning. The layering of history adds to the complexity. Over centuries, new structures were carved, old ones repurposed, and religious practices evolved. Some rooms bear the marks of early Christianity, while others retain pagan motifs. This palimpsest of human activity complicates interpretation. Are we seeing the original intent of the city's founders, or a series of adaptations shaped by successive generations? And how much of the original design, purpose, and ritual meaning has been irretrievably lost? Walking through al-Bint today, the experience is immersive. The corridors echo faintly, the light filters through openings in shafts and tunnels, and every turn reveals a new interplay of stone and shadow. One can imagine the rhythm of life, inhabitants moving between terraces, priests performing ceremonies, and artisans shaping rock with care and intention. Yet these echoes are fragile. Much of the city's past is irrecoverable, existing only in the traces left in stone and the imagination of those who study it. The mysteries of al-Bint endure because it defies simple categorization. It is at once fortress, city, temple, and observatory, a place where daily life, ritual practice, and cosmic alignment may have converged. Its builders demonstrated extraordinary ingenuity and vision, yet we are left with questions. How did they plan and execute such a vast rock-cut complex? What guided their selection of terraces, tunnels, and halls? Did their understanding of astronomy, landscape, and ritual reflect a sophisticated knowledge system that has since vanished? The al-Bint ruins stand as a testament to human creativity, endurance, and the capacity to shape the natural world into spaces of meaning. They are a reminder that ancient societies often combined the practical and the spiritual in ways that challenge our modern understanding. And even as we study, measure, and theorize, The city retains its aura of mystery, its corridors and halls silent witnesses to lives, beliefs, and knowledge that remain partially beyond our grasp. As the sun sets over the Metkvari River, casting long shadows across carved terraces, one cannot help but feel that Uplist-Siki has preserved more than stone and history. It preserves questions, enigmas, and the echo of human ambition reaching into the living rock. What knowledge remains encoded in these tunnels and halls, waiting to be understood? What secrets did its builders take with them into history, and what truths remain etched into the sandstone for those patient enough to explore? From the cliffside chambers of Uplist-Siki, where humans carved entire cities into rock, we move once more to the highlands of Africa, where the land rises in vast plateaus and the air carries both heat and the whispers of ancient kingdoms. Here, in the northern reaches of Ethiopia, the city of Aksum preserves some of the most enigmatic monuments of the ancient world, towering obelisks or stelae, hewn from single blocks of granite and rising skyward with an elegance and audacity that continues to captivate historians, engineers, and travelers alike. Approaching Aksum, one is immediately struck by the scale of these monuments. The largest reach heights of over 33 meters, their surfaces etched with geometric patterns, false windows, and doors carved with astonishing precision. Some lean precariously, as though the centuries themselves test the stone's endurance. Others, fallen and fragmented, lie horizontally, massive and silent, inviting speculation on how they were raised and what rituals or ambitions they once served. The contrast between the towering obelisks and the human figures standing at their base emphasizes both the skill and audacity of the civilization that erected them. Mainstream scholarship dates these stelae to the 4th century CE, constructed during the height of the Aksumite Empire, one of Africa's most powerful and sophisticated civilizations. Aksum controlled trade across the Red Sea, linking the Mediterranean world with the interior of Africa, and left behind a legacy of monumental architecture, coinage, and inscriptions. Yet despite its prominence, many questions about these obelisks remain unanswered. How did the Aksumites quarry, transport, and raise single blocks of granite that weigh hundreds of tons without modern machinery? How did they achieve such architectural and structural precision that some of these monuments still stand after 15 centuries of earthquakes, weathering, and human activity? The design of the obelisks is itself a puzzle. Unlike Egyptian counterparts, Aksumite stelae are often adorned with reliefs resembling multi-storied palaces, complete with rows of windows and doors. These carvings suggest that the obelisks may symbolize funerary towers, marking the tombs of kings and nobles. Yet the precise meaning remains debated. Were the stelae purely commemorative, or did they hold spiritual, political, and cosmological significance simultaneously? Could they have functioned as solar markers, signaling solstices or other celestial events, similar to other monumental sites around the world? Transporting these massive stones remains one of the greatest mysteries of Aksum. Some stelae were quarried from granite sources several kilometers away, and no definitive evidence explains the methods used to move them across uneven terrain and then erect them upright. Archaeologists speculate that ramps, ropes, and human labor may have sufficed, yet the feat borders on the extraordinary. Could there have been lost techniques, now unknown, that allowed the builders to manipulate such weight with precision? And if so, why has this knowledge not been preserved in surviving records? Fallen and broken stelae further complicate the narrative. One massive obelisk, toppled and fractured, reveals interior chambers and hollows that suggest techniques for weight reduction or structural stabilization. Were these features functional, or were they symbolic, representing thresholds between the living and the dead, or between earthly authority and divine power? The interplay between form and function is a recurring theme at Aksum, emphasizing that these monuments were not merely inert stone, but expressions of culture, spirituality, and power. Historical accounts add both context and intrigue. Ancient texts and local traditions describe Axum as a center of learning, religion, and commerce, connected with distant kingdoms from Rome to India. Some accounts link the city with the Ark of the Covenant, though these claims remain unverified and heavily debated. Whether legend or historical reality, such stories amplify the aura surrounding the obelisks, lending a sense of mystery that has persisted for millennia. The Aksumite Empire itself raises questions about knowledge, technology, and organization. Raising a single obelisk would have required meticulous planning, coordination of large labor forces, and advanced understanding of physics and engineering principles. What social structures enabled this level of organization? Were these projects driven by religious devotion, political propaganda, or both? And how much of the technical know-how was considered sacred, restricted to an elite group of artisans and priests? Another layer of mystery lies in the arrangement of the stelae. Some stand in clusters, others are isolated, and the patterns may reflect a cosmological order or ritual significance. Could the placement of each obelisk have been influenced by cardinal directions, celestial alignments, or sacred geography? And if so, what knowledge guided these choices, and how much of it has been lost to time? The obelisks themselves convey a sense of permanence and continuity. Carved from single blocks of granite with precision that defies casual measurement, they survive as both art and engineering marvel. Yet some have fallen or broken, reminding us that even monumental human achievement is vulnerable to nature and the passage of time. The ruins compel reflection. What was intended to endure forever, and what is inevitably claimed by centuries? Speculative interpretations continue to fascinate. Some researchers have proposed that the stelae encode astronomical or calendrical information, while others suggest that their proportions and carvings reflect spiritual cosmologies now lost to history. Could the geometric designs represent sacred numbers, encoded messages, or maps of power? Were these monuments silent witnesses to rituals whose meaning we can only partially reconstruct? The uncertainty is part of their allure, a tangible reminder that human civilization often conceals as much as it reveals. Standing among the towering stones today, the effect is immediate. The scale, the craftsmanship, and the subtle play of light and shadow evoke both awe and curiosity. One imagines the laborers hauling stone along makeshift ramps, artisans chiseling windows and doors with careful precision, and priests conducting ceremonies that sanctified the site. And yet, the stones themselves remain mute, preserving history, ingenuity, and mystery in equal measure. The Axum obelisks challenge our assumptions about the limits of ancient engineering, political organization, and artistic ambition. They remind us that societies long before our own were capable of feats that continue to astonish, and that some knowledge of technique, ritual, and cosmology can vanish even while its physical traces endure. As the sun sets over the highlands of northern Ethiopia, casting long shadows across carved granite and weathered earth, one is struck by the enduring questions these obelisks present. How exactly were they quarried, transported, and erected? What did their carvings and placement signify to the people who built them? And what secrets, buried in stone and story, might still lie waiting just beyond our reach in the heart of Axum? The obelisks of Axum stand not merely as monuments of stone, but as sentinels of human curiosity, ambition, and devotion, reminding us that even as civilizations rise and fall, the desire to reach skyward, to leave a mark upon the world, and to encode meaning in enduring forms remains universal. And yet, despite centuries of study, the mystery of their creation and purpose persists, inviting each observer to reflect, wonder, and imagine the knowledge that has been lost, and perhaps the truths that are still waiting to be discovered. From the towering obelisks of Axum, monuments that rise with audacious grace from the Ethiopian highlands, our journey moves southward to a quieter, yet equally compelling landscape. Here, rolling plains stretch beneath open skies, punctuated by a scattering of standing stones that whisper of human ambition and mystery. This is Tia, a site whose megaliths have stood for centuries, guarding secrets carved into the earth long before modern history could record them. The first glimpse of Tia is striking. Dozens of upright stones, some towering over 4 meters, others more modest in scale, rise from the ground with a solemn presence. Many are adorned with intricate carvings, concentric circles, wavy lines, and symbolic representations that challenge interpretation. Among these, stylized depictions of swords stand out, etched with precision that suggests not only artistic skill, but intentional communication. Viewed from afar, the arrangement hints at deliberate planning, a choreography of stone that invites speculation on the knowledge, culture, and beliefs of the people who placed them here. Dating the Tia megaliths has proved elusive. Archaeologists estimate that they were constructed between the 12th and 15th centuries CE, though some suggest earlier origins may be possible. Unlike the grand obelisks of Axum, which proclaim the reach and authority of an empire, the Tia stones convey something more intimate, more enigmatic. A society preserving memory, ritual, and perhaps a codified language in stone. Were these markers primarily funerary, commemorating the dead, or did they also serve as ceremonial spaces, territorial symbols, or expressions of cosmological knowledge? The swords carved into many of the stones are particularly compelling. Do they represent actual weapons, marking the graves of warriors, or are they symbolic, emblems of power, protection, or spiritual authority? Their repetition across multiple stones suggests a shared cultural language, a visual lexicon whose meaning we can glimpse but not fully interpret. Could these symbols have conveyed social hierarchy, spiritual practice, or even a map of sacred knowledge? And if so, what knowledge was considered important enough to be immortalized in stone? Beyond individual motifs, the spatial organization of Tia remains a profound mystery. The stones do not rise randomly. They are arranged with apparent attention to orientation and placement. Some researchers note possible alignments with natural landmarks or celestial phenomena, hinting that the builders may have had knowledge of solstices, seasonal cycles, or sacred geography. Yet, without definitive evidence, such interpretations remain speculative. Were these stones markers of ritual processions, observatories for the heavens, or territorial signposts linking community, landscape, and belief? The physical labor involved in creating the Tia megaliths also invites reflection. Each stone was quarried from nearby sources, shaped, transported, and erected with precision, all without metal tools or sophisticated machinery. How did the builders achieve such feats, especially with stones weighing several tons? Was it purely coordinated human effort? Or might there have been techniques now lost to history, methods of levering, rolling, or balancing that allowed the stones to rise upright and remain stable over centuries? The absence of written records leaves us to speculate, yet the enduring nature of these monuments speaks to extraordinary skill, ingenuity, and organization. Some stones feature abstract, anthropomorphic forms, suggesting ritual or symbolic significance beyond practical or commemorative functions. Could these carvings represent ancestors, deities, or spiritual guides? If so, what rituals accompanied their creation? Were these symbols intended to channel protection, knowledge, or memory, guiding both the living and the dead in a carefully constructed sacred landscape? The ambiguity of the carvings encourages contemplation rather than conclusion, allowing the mystery to remain intact. Tia also raises questions about cultural continuity and influence. Ethiopia has long been a crossroads of civilizations, from the Aksumite Empire in the north to the highland communities of the south. Were the Tia megalith builders influenced by Aksumite monumental architecture, or did they develop independently, drawing on local traditions and belief systems? The recurrence of sword motifs, geometric patterns, and careful alignment suggests an internal logic, an understanding of social, spiritual, and perhaps cosmological order that guided the placement of each stone. The scale of the site implies a highly organized society capable of mobilizing labor, managing resources, and transmitting knowledge across generations. Who directed these efforts, and for what purpose? Was it a communal undertaking, led by spiritual leaders, or a display of elite authority? And why, after centuries of care and construction, did the meanings and knowledge associated with these stones fade, leaving future generations to interpret them solely through observation and hypothesis? Speculative interpretations deepen the allure of Tia. Some scholars suggest that the stones may have encoded knowledge of celestial cycles, functioning as a calendar or ritual observatory. Others propose that they marked sacred spaces connected to the ancestors, serving as portals between the temporal and spiritual worlds. Perhaps the repetition of symbols and careful placement were intended to convey authority, continuity, and protection, transforming the landscape itself into a repository of collective memory. The truth may lie in a combination of these possibilities, interweaving practicality, spirituality, and social identity. Walking among the Tia megaliths today is a humbling experience. The plains stretch in every direction. The wind caresses the stones, and sunlight illuminates carvings weathered but enduring. One can imagine the laborers raising each monolith, artisans chiseling symbols with care, and communities performing rituals that gave these stones meaning. Yet the voices of those who built Tia are silent. Only the carvings, placement, and enduring presence of the stones remain to hint at a culture that understood both the practical and symbolic power of stone. The megaliths of Tia are, in essence, an interface between humanity and the cosmos, between life and death, between the known and the unknowable. They reflect extraordinary craftsmanship, social organization, and symbolic sophistication. Yet they leave us with more questions than answers. How were these stones quarried, transported, and erected with such precision? What exactly did their carvings signify to those who created them? And what knowledge, lost to time, allowed a community to shape the landscape in a manner that continues to challenge and inspire observers today? Standing among these stones, one cannot help but sense the rhythm of an ancient world. The echoes of ritual, labor, and daily life seem to linger, suspended in time, visible only through the careful study of stone and landscape. The site encourages reflection, inviting us to consider the universality of human curiosity, ingenuity, and the desire to leave a mark on the world that endures beyond a single lifetime. Tia remains a silent testament to human ambition, spiritual practice, and cultural memory. It exemplifies the ways ancient societies shaped their environment to reflect social, cosmological, and ritual priorities. And yet, despite centuries of investigation, its mysteries remain unresolved. What meanings have been lost, and what truths remain encoded in stone, waiting for patient eyes and thoughtful minds to uncover them. In Tia, as in all the great monuments of human history, the questions endure even when answers elude us. From the highlands of Ethiopia, where the Tia megaliths stand as silent guardians of a long-lost culture, our journey carries us thousands of miles northwest, across continents, oceans, and centuries, to the windswept plains of Brittany, France. Here, beneath the ever-shifting light of the Atlantic sky, stretches one of Europe's most enigmatic and imposing prehistoric landscapes, the Karnak Stones, a vast assemblage of standing stones that have captivated scholars, travelers, and dreamers for millennia. The first impression is immediately striking. Over 3,000 menhirs, tall, slender stones hewn from local granite, rise in long, deliberate rows across the rolling fields. Some reach heights of over 6 meters, others are smaller, yet each commands attention, an austere monument of human intent set against the low horizon. From above, the alignment of the stones becomes evident, endless parallel rows stretching for kilometers, curving subtly with the land, forming patterns that are both orderly and mysterious. There is a rhythm to the placement, a silent choreography across time and space, suggesting that the builders were not merely erecting stone, but communicating through it. Dating these stones remains a challenge, though most scholars place their construction between 4,500 and 3,300 BCE, within the Neolithic period. They predate the pyramids of Egypt and the great civilizations of Mesopotamia, yet exhibit an astonishing understanding of space, proportion, and possibly celestial observation. Who were these people, and what compelled them to arrange stone after stone across the fields of Brittany? The purpose of the Karnak stones has been debated for centuries, yielding theories as varied as their scale and form. Mainstream interpretations suggest ceremonial or religious functions. Some stones may have marked sacred pathways or ritual spaces, while others could have been territorial markers, asserting control over the surrounding land. Yet there is no written record, no inscription to guide us. What we see are stones that speak only in shape, orientation, and silent presence. The sheer scale of the arrangement, rows stretching for several kilometers, implies long-term planning, communal labor, and a social structure capable of mobilizing large numbers of people for a shared vision. The stones themselves are remarkable for their uniformity and precision. While carved simply, each was carefully shaped and transported across the landscape, their placement calculated with care. Some rows curve gently, others remain straight for hundreds of meters. Was this deliberate, reflecting topographical adaptation, ritual practice, or perhaps an astronomical alignment? Some researchers have noted potential connections to solstices, lunar cycles, or star positions, raising the possibility that the builders possessed sophisticated knowledge of celestial mechanics, encoded in stone long before the advent of formal astronomy. Intriguingly, some stones bear cup marks, shallow depressions carved into their surfaces, whose purpose remains uncertain. Were these functional, perhaps for offerings, or symbolic, representing stars, water, or abstract spiritual concepts? The recurrence of these marks, their placement within certain alignments, suggests intentionality, yet their precise meaning remains elusive. Could these symbols have been a form of communication, a record of events, or a coded ritual language understood only by initiates? The scale and uniformity of the Karnak stones also invite reflection on logistics and engineering. Moving massive granite stones without wheels or advanced tools presents challenges that would have required ingenuity, coordination, and perhaps techniques now lost to time. Did the builders use wooden rollers, sledges, or earthen ramps? How did they plan the placement of thousands of stones in patterns spanning kilometers, maintaining both alignment and consistency? The solutions remain speculative, yet the results endure, hinting at a society capable of remarkable technical and organizational feats. Beyond their physicality, the Karnak stones provoke questions about worldview and belief. Their placement, often along gentle slopes and valleys, suggests an interaction with the landscape itself. Were the stones intended to guide travelers, mark the passage of the seasons, or connect the living with the ancestors? Some theorists propose that the stones functioned as a form of prehistoric calendar, a tool for tracking lunar or solar cycles, or even as markers of sacred lines of energy, though such ideas remain speculative. What is certain is that the builders saw meaning in both stone and landscape, transforming the environment into a canvas of cultural expression. Another mystery lies in the consistency and repetition of the arrangements. Why erect thousands of stones in parallel rows when simpler structures could have served practical or ritual purposes? Could the repetition itself hold symbolic significance, a reflection of cosmology, social order, or a visual representation of time, life, or the cosmos? Might the alignments encode knowledge of seasons, agricultural cycles, or celestial events, passed down orally and through ritual practice? The absence of contemporary records means we are left to interpret through observation, analogy, and careful archaeological investigation. Over centuries, the Karnak stones have inspired fascination, study, and speculation. Some have suggested connections to megalithic traditions across Europe, from Stonehenge in England to the dolmens of Iberia, hinting at cultural networks or shared knowledge that spanned vast distances. Others have proposed ritual or initiatory functions, where the stones formed sacred corridors for processions or ceremonies, linking community, landscape, and the spiritual world. Yet, despite centuries of research, the stones continue to guard their secrets, offering evidence but withholding definitive answers. Walking among the rows today, the experience is immersive. The wind sweeps across the fields, rustling grass around the bases of the standing stones, and one can sense the meticulous care with which each stone was shaped and placed. The alignment and orientation suggest a deliberate visual and spatial narrative, a story of humans striving to connect with the land, the sky, and perhaps forces beyond our understanding. It is a landscape of thought, labor, and belief, frozen in stone yet alive in the questions it inspires. The Karnak stones challenge modern perceptions of prehistoric societies. They compel us to consider the capacity for organization, vision, and symbolic expression in communities often assumed to be simple or isolated. They remind us that long before written history, humans sought to encode meaning in the landscape, to communicate across generations, and to engage with the cosmos through labor, observation, and artistry. Yet much of this knowledge remains tantalizingly out of reach, preserved only in the silent rows of stone. As the sun dips toward the Atlantic horizon, casting long shadows across the Karnak plain, one cannot help but reflect on the enduring enigma of these monuments. Who placed these stones and why? What knowledge, ritual, or belief guided their creation? And what remains hidden, encoded in patterns, orientation, and subtle carvings, waiting for careful eyes and patient minds to decipher? The Karnak stones endure not merely as monuments of stone, but as timeless provocateurs of human curiosity, challenging us to imagine the lives, knowledge, and aspirations of those who erected them. They invite us to explore, to question, and to acknowledge that even millennia later, some mysteries remain deliberately unresolved, their stories whispered only through the rhythm, placement, and silent presence of stone. From the windswept plains of Brittany, where the Karnak stones rise in long silent rows under the shifting European sky, our journey travels across oceans and continents to the tropical lowlands of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Here, in a dense, sun-dappled jungle, lies Chichen Itza, one of the most remarkable centers of the ancient Maya civilization, a city whose monumental architecture continues to provoke wonder, study, and debate. Approaching Chichen Itza, one is immediately struck by the precision and scale of its constructions. The centerpiece, the El Castillo Pyramid, known also as the Temple of Kukulkan, rises with a geometric perfection that seems almost deliberate in its cosmic alignment. Each of its 4 sides bears 91 steps, which, combined with the platform at the summit, totals 365, the exact number of days in a solar year. As the sun shifts during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the play of light and shadow along the pyramid's staircase creates the illusion of a serpent undulating down the stone, an ephemeral phenomenon that has captivated observers for centuries. Chichen Itza was at its zenith between the 9th and 12th centuries CE, yet the sophistication of its design suggests a deep understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. The city is arranged with deliberate care. Temples, plazas, ball courts, and observatories align not only with each other, but often with celestial events, as if the Maya sought to encode the movements of the heavens directly into stone. What knowledge guided their planners? How did they develop such precise observational techniques, translating them into enduring architecture? The Great Ball Court, the largest in Mesoamerica, invites further reflection. Its walls soar up to 8 meters, carved with detailed reliefs depicting ritual scenes and the high-stakes games played within. Acoustically, the court is astonishing. A whisper at one end carries clearly to the other, and certain claps produce echoes resembling the cry of the sacred Quetzal bird. Was this acoustic marvel intentional? A deliberate integration of art, architecture, and symbolism, or a serendipitous byproduct of design? And what role did these games play beyond sport? Were they ceremonial, political, or perhaps a reenactment of cosmic struggles? Scattered throughout Chichen Itza are smaller, yet equally enigmatic structures: the Temple of the Warriors, the Observatory, El Caracol, and numerous platforms adorned with intricate carvings and glyphs. Each contributes to a cityscape that reflects not merely practical or aesthetic concerns, but the Maya worldview itself. The alignment of buildings, the symbolism in carvings, and the placement of sacred spaces all suggest a society in which cosmology, governance, and ritual were inseparably intertwined. Yet, despite extensive study, many of the meanings embedded in stone remain elusive. El Caracol, the circular observatory, raises profound questions about Maya astronomical knowledge. Its spiral staircase, unusual form, and carefully positioned windows appear to track planetary movements, eclipses, and other celestial events. Could the Maya have been capable of long-term predictions of astronomical phenomena? Were their observations purely scientific, or were they also deeply entwined with ritual and cosmology, serving as a bridge between the heavens and human society? And how much of this knowledge has been lost due to the passage of time and colonial disruption? Chichen Itza also conceals mysteries beneath its surface. Excavations reveal that the city sits atop cenotes, natural sinkholes that provided water and likely held sacred significance. The sacred cenote, in particular, was used for offerings, including, according to some accounts, human sacrifices. What motivated such practices, and how did the Maya reconcile the sanctity of water with acts of ritualized death? Were these offerings meant to ensure fertility, rainfall, or cosmic balance, or did they reflect a complex interplay of power, religion, and societal order? The carvings and iconography throughout the city provide further intrigue. Feathered serpents, jaguars, warriors, and intricate glyphs hint at myths, histories, and cosmologies that are only partially understood. Some reliefs seem to encode historical events, while others may reference cycles of time, cosmological battles, or metaphysical principles. Could Chichen Itza have served as a living codex, its stone structures transmitting knowledge across generations through both ritual and architecture? And if so, how much of this codified knowledge remains undeciphered, hidden within the interplay of stone, shadow, and observation? The precision and durability of Chichen Itza's construction continue to inspire awe. The Maya quarried massive limestone blocks, transported them across the landscape, and assembled them with such accuracy that many structures have withstood centuries of weather, seismic activity, and human interference. How did they achieve such feats without metal tools, pulleys, or modern machinery? Was it purely ingenuity, accumulated knowledge passed through generations, or methods that remain unknown to us? Beyond technical mastery, Chichen Itza exemplifies the integration of human life with celestial and natural cycles. The pyramid's equinox shadows, the orientation of plazas, and the positioning of water sources all suggest a worldview in which architecture, astronomy, and environment were inseparably connected. Did the Maya see themselves as stewards of cosmic order, shaping the city as both a practical habitat and a spiritual mirror of the universe? And how much of this integrated vision can we truly grasp today, separated as we are by centuries, languages, and lost traditions? Speculative interpretations continue to emerge. Some theorists propose that Chichen Itza may have encoded advanced knowledge of astronomy and mathematics far beyond what we currently recognize. Others suggest that subterranean chambers, hidden passages, or as yet undiscovered structures could reveal additional layers of meaning or evidence of practices that have left no written record. What secrets remain buried beneath the plaza stones or hidden in the carvings, waiting to be rediscovered? Walking through Chichen Itza today, the experience is immersive and humbling. The interplay of light and shadow, the geometry of the pyramids, and the rhythmic alignment of structures create a sense of purpose, intention, and awe. It is easy to imagine the city alive with ceremony, observation, and daily life. Priests marking celestial events, warriors participating in sacred games, and communities gathering at cenotes to honor gods and ancestors. And yet, despite centuries of study, much of this ancient city's meaning remains beyond our reach, encoded in stone, shadow, and space. The mystery of Chichen Itza is not only architectural but existential. It compels us to ask how a civilization without modern technology could create structures of such precision, alignments, and symbolism. How much of their understanding of the cosmos, of mathematics, and of ritual practice has been lost? And what might these monuments reveal about humanity's enduring desire to connect with forces beyond our immediate perception? Chichen Itza stands as a testament to the ingenuity, cosmology, and spiritual depth of the Maya civilization. It challenges modern observers to consider not only the technical skill required to create such monuments, but also the worldview, belief systems, and cultural priorities that shaped them. And while much remains unresolved, the city continues to speak across centuries, inviting reflection, wonder, and a recognition that some mysteries are meant to endure, prompting questions that each generation must approach with curiosity, humility, and imagination. From the sun-drenched plazas and shadowed pyramids of Chichen Itza, where Maya architects encoded the cycles of the heavens into stone, our journey now takes us across continents once again, this time to the Iberian Peninsula. Nestled within the fertile plains of Antequera in southern Spain lies the Dolmen of Menga, a megalithic monument whose scale, precision, and enigmatic purpose have long captivated archaeologists, historians, and curious travelers alike. At first sight, the Dolmen of Menga is awe-inspiring. Its massive stone blocks, some weighing over 180 tons, rise to form a corridor nearly 27 meters long, culminating in a burial chamber that seems both monumental and intimate. The stones are arranged with remarkable care, their alignment and proportion creating a sense of harmony, permanence, and deliberate intention. Entering the dolmen is to step into a space where human effort, architectural ambition, and the mysteries of ancient belief converge. Constructed around 3,500 to 3000 BCE during the Copper Age, the Dolmen of Menga predates most classical civilizations. yet it reveals an extraordinary understanding of construction, geometry, and social coordination. How were such enormous stones quarried, transported, and set into place without the wheel or metal tools? Some suggest a combination of rolling logs, ramps, and sheer manpower, yet the precision with which each block fits together hints at techniques that remain only partially understood. What knowledge of physics, leverage, and labor organization was preserved in these communities, now lost to history? The dolmen is traditionally interpreted as a burial site, and within its inner chamber, traces of human remains and funerary offerings have been found. Yet this alone cannot explain the monument's full significance. Its massive scale suggests that Menga was not merely a tomb, but a focal point of communal life, ritual, and perhaps cosmology. Unlike smaller local graves, the dolmen communicates on a monumental scale, a stone testament to beliefs, social hierarchy, and human connection to place and time. One of the most intriguing features of Menga is its unusual orientation. Unlike many dolmens across Europe, which align with the rising or setting sun, the dolmen of Menga is oriented toward the Peña de los Enamorados, a striking limestone mountain nearby. This alignment raises questions. Was the mountain itself sacred, a spiritual marker, or a territorial symbol? Did its silhouette serve as a celestial reference, guiding ceremonies or linking the earthbound monument to the cycles of sun, moon, or stars? Archaeologists remain uncertain, but the alignment hints at a world-view in which the landscape itself was part of a sacred dialogue, as significant as the stones themselves. The architectural sophistication of the dolmen is equally compelling. The ceiling of the chamber is formed by massive capstones, carefully balanced and supported by vertical stones that withstand the weight of centuries. How did ancient builders calculate the stresses and pressures, ensuring stability without written blueprints or modern engineering knowledge? Was this intuition, accumulated experience, or a combination of trial, error, and communal memory? Each massive stone is a silent witness to human ingenuity, yet it also embodies questions that remain unanswered. Carvings and inscriptions within the dolmen, though sparse, add further intrigue. Some markings appear to be symbolic, perhaps ritualistic, possibly representing abstract cosmological concepts or social identifiers. Others are more enigmatic, seemingly etched with intent, but whose meaning is lost to time. Were these symbols part of initiation rituals, records of lineage, or spiritual codes meant to guide the deceased in the afterlife? And if so, how much of their significance has vanished alongside the languages, beliefs, and cultural frameworks of their builders? Menga's scale also implies a remarkable degree of social organization. Moving stones of such weight would have required hundreds of participants, coordinated effort, and long-term planning. What social structures enabled such projects? Were these laborers volunteers, ritual participants, or conscripted workers? Did the process of construction itself hold ceremonial or educational significance, creating bonds of identity, knowledge, and shared purpose within the community? The dolmen stands as a testament not only to skill but also to social cohesion, a monument to collective human effort that persists across millennia. Speculative theories add yet another layer of fascination. Some researchers propose that the dolmen of Menga functioned as more than a tomb. It may have served as an astronomical marker, a territorial boundary, or a ritual theater for observing natural phenomena. Could the orientation toward the Peña de los Enamorados have encoded seasonal cycles, solar events, or even lunar observations? Did the builders intend to map their spiritual universe onto the physical landscape, creating a tangible interface between earth and sky, life and death, human and cosmic? While definitive answers elude us, the dolmen invites contemplation on the sophistication of prehistoric thought. Walking through the corridor of the dolmen of Menga is a profound experience. the air feels cooler, quieter, as though the massive stones themselves absorb centuries of memory. One can imagine the rituals once performed here, communities gathering, chanting, and laying offerings, each act reinforcing social cohesion and spiritual understanding. The stones, silent yet enduring, offer hints of a worldview that valued permanence, symbolism, and connection with both landscape and cosmos. The dolmen also speaks to the universal human desire to transcend mortality through creation. By shaping these stones, aligning them with mountains, and perhaps encoding celestial knowledge, the builders of Menga attempted to make the impermanent eternal. Their efforts bridge time, connecting us to the aspirations, fears, and spiritual practices of a people whose names, languages, and specific beliefs are largely lost. Yet for all its grandeur and sophistication, the dolmen of Menga retains profound mystery. We may understand its function as a burial site, we may trace its orientation to natural landmarks, and we may admire the engineering feat it represents. But the full meaning, the rituals, the beliefs, the stories, remains partially obscured. What knowledge guided its builders? How did they conceptualize death, cosmos, and community? And what lessons remain encoded in the stones, waiting for patient observation, imagination, and interpretation? The dolmen of Menga is more than stone and labor. It is a dialogue across millennia. It challenges us to consider the ingenuity of prehistoric societies, their understanding of architecture and landscape, and their ability to convey meaning through monumental construction. It reminds us that mystery is not merely the absence of knowledge, but the presence of questions, deliberate, enduring, and compelling. Standing within its shadow, one feels the weight of history, the silent testimony of human endeavor, and the unresolved enigma of a culture that shaped its landscape with intent, care, and profound awareness. The dolmen invites reflection, imagination, and wonder, a reminder that even the most studied monuments continue to guard secrets, prompting us to ask not only how they were built, but why, and what else, still hidden, awaits discovery. From the megalithic corridors of Menga in southern Spain, where ancient communities shaped the landscape with monumental stone, our journey now moves across continents once more, to the sprawling plains of the Indus River in present-day Pakistan. Here lies Mohenjo-Daro, a city whose very name, Mound of the Dead, evokes both history and mystery. Unlike the solitary stones or small clusters of megaliths we have encountered, Mohenjo-Daro represents a fully realized urban civilization, a society of planning, organization, and complexity that challenges modern assumptions about human development in the 3rd millennium BCE. At first glance, the ruins are expansive and somewhat enigmatic. From the earth, low brick platforms, sun-baked walls, and remnants of carefully aligned streets emerge, hinting at a once thriving city of tens of thousands. The meticulous grid layout of Mohenjo-Daro is immediately striking. Broad avenues intersect at right angles, and buildings are arranged in an organized pattern suggesting zoning, municipal planning, and a shared understanding of urban space. Unlike earlier settlements that evolved organically, this city appears to have been conceived with an overarching design in mind. Who were the planners, and what principles guided them? The architecture of Mohenjo-Daro reflects remarkable sophistication. Houses were built from uniform baked bricks, many with private wells, bathing areas, and sanitation systems, a level of urban planning unparalleled in contemporary civilizations. Streets were systematically drained, and public baths, like the Great Bath, suggest ritualized uses intertwined with hygiene, community, or religious practice. Did these features represent a society highly attuned to civic organization, or did they also carry deeper symbolic meaning, where water and cleanliness were connected to spiritual or cosmological principles? The precision with which these elements were constructed invites speculation about the knowledge, social cohesion, and technical skill of the Indus people. One of the greatest mysteries of Mohenjo-Daro is its sudden decline. Around 1900 BCE, the city appears to have been abandoned, leaving buildings and streets largely intact but empty of life. Archaeologists have debated the reasons for this disappearance for decades. Some point to environmental changes, shifts in river courses, flooding, or prolonged droughts. Others suggest internal social disruption, epidemics, or even conflict. Yet the evidence remains inconclusive. How could a city so carefully planned and so sophisticated, with advanced water management and durable construction, be abandoned so abruptly? And why do we find no definitive evidence of violent destruction, as seen in many other ancient cities? Beyond urban planning, the Indus script continues to baffle scholars. Engravings on seals, tablets, and pottery appear throughout Mohenjo-Daro, yet despite decades of effort, this writing system remains undeciphered. These symbols likely conveyed important information, perhaps administrative, religious, or commercial, but their precise meaning eludes us. Could these inscriptions reveal insights into governance, trade, or cosmology? Or were they ceremonial, encoded for a specific elite class? The inability to read the script leaves us with tantalizing glimpses of a society whose intellectual and cultural richness is tantalizingly just beyond reach. The city also contains objects that provoke both curiosity and speculation. Small statues, terracotta figurines, and intricately carved seals suggest ritual practices, social hierarchy, and possibly religious devotion. The iconic priest-king statue, with its calm demeanor and ornate headdress, suggests the presence of social or spiritual leadership, yet its precise role is uncertain. Did the Indus society have a centralized authority, or was it governed collectively through guilds, councils, or merchant classes? And how did such a society, sophisticated in engineering and urbanism, navigate political, spiritual, and economic life in a way that remains largely hidden to us? Mohenjo-Daro's engineering marvels continue to fascinate modern scholars. The standardized size of bricks, uniform street grids, and advanced drainage systems indicate an understanding of measurement, modularity, and hydraulics that was exceptional for its time. Could this uniformity reflect not only technical skill, but a broader philosophical or cultural worldview, a desire to impose order on the landscape, to harmonize human activity with the cycles of rivers and seasons? And if so, what knowledge guided these choices, and why did it vanish alongside the city itself? Speculative theories abound, adding layers of mystery. Some suggest that the city's abrupt abandonment reflects a catastrophic environmental event, perhaps an earthquake or flooding that rendered its advanced systems unusable. Others propose social or political upheaval, or even external invasion. Yet none of these hypotheses can be confirmed with certainty, and each leaves critical questions unanswered. Why would a society capable of sustaining tens of thousands, with sophisticated urban infrastructure and apparent social stability, collapse so completely? And why does the material record show continuity in some Indus settlements, while Mohenjo-Daro itself seems abruptly emptied? The Great Bath, a monumental water tank at the heart of the city, raises further intrigue. Its size, construction, and positioning suggest ritual significance, perhaps linked to purification, religious observance, or social cohesion. Was the act of bathing communal, ceremonial, or practical? Could the placement of the bath within the urban grid indicate a deeper cosmological logic, aligning civic life with spiritual or environmental principles? The deliberate attention to both form and function underscores a society deeply engaged with the organization of daily life, ritual, and space, yet the precise nature of these practices remains enigmatic. Mohenjo-Daro also presents mysteries of trade, economy, and connectivity. Evidence suggests the city was part of a vast network, engaging in commerce with Mesopotamia and other contemporary civilizations. Standardized weights and measures, seals, and inscriptions hint at administrative sophistication. How did the Indus people coordinate such complex trade? And what knowledge was required to maintain standardization across vast distances? And why, despite extensive evidence of interaction with other cultures, did the Indus script and many aspects of its cultural system vanish from history, leaving only fragments behind? Walking through the ruins today, one is struck by a sense of silence, interrupted only by the whisper of wind across sun-baked streets and eroded walls. The scale, precision, and design convey a civilization of remarkable intelligence and foresight, yet the absence of conclusive explanations leaves the mind searching. What motivated the meticulous urban planning? What beliefs and rituals informed the architecture, the water systems, and the communal spaces? And what knowledge did the city preserve that has now been lost to millennia? Mohenjo-Daro challenges modern perceptions of prehistoric urbanism. It reminds us that sophistication, organization, and intellectual achievement are not exclusive to societies with written histories or monumental pyramids. Here, a civilization flourished along river plains, achieving feats of engineering, urban design, and civic coordination that resonate even today. Yet despite its achievements, its mysteries endure. A vanished language, an abrupt abandonment, and a culture that, while visible in brick and mortar, remains largely unknowable. Standing amid the streets, walls, and monumental ruins, one cannot help but reflect on the ephemeral nature of human accomplishment. Mohenjo-Daro embodies both the triumph and vulnerability of civilization. It demonstrates that knowledge, planning, and cultural sophistication can rise to extraordinary heights, yet still be obscured or lost to time. The city compels us to ask questions that transcend archaeology alone. How do societies endure? How do knowledge and culture persist or vanish across generations? And what remains hidden, awaiting rediscovery beneath the layers of earth and history? The mystery of Mohenjo-Daro endures not simply because of what is visible in its ruins, but because of what lies unseen. The daily lives, beliefs, governance structures, and knowledge systems that created such a remarkable city and then left it silent. It is a monument not just to the people who built it, but to the enduring enigma of human history itself. And as we explore its streets and chambers, we are reminded that some of the most profound mysteries are not in the artifacts alone, but in the absence, the questions, the gaps, and the unknown that continue to inspire curiosity and wonder. In Mohenjo-Daro, as in all great ancient sites, the stones speak, but only partially. They invite us to imagine, to question, and to acknowledge the limits of our understanding. What was the full scope of the Indus civilization's knowledge? Why did it vanish? And what traces of its wisdom remain buried beneath the mounds and streets? The answers remain elusive, yet the search itself connects us across millennia to the ingenuity, ambition, and mystery of those who came before. From the sprawling streets and sophisticated urban planning of Mohenjo-Daro, where the Indus civilization reached extraordinary heights of organization, our journey now turns to the windswept northern isles of Scotland. Far from the tropical plains of the Indus and the fertile valleys of southern Spain, the Orkney Islands rise from the North Sea, their rugged coastline and shifting mists concealing some of Europe's most enigmatic prehistoric monuments, the chambered cairns of Orkney. These structures, hewn from local stone and carefully arranged atop the rolling landscape, are at once monumental and intimate, enduring witnesses to societies whose beliefs, rituals, and knowledge remain tantalizingly out of reach. At first sight, the cairns are deceptively simple. From a distance, they resemble natural mounds scattered across the heather and grass. Yet closer inspection reveals intricate stonework forming passageways, chambers, and burial compartments. Structures such as Machu, Wideford Hill, and Qasr Hill exhibit a careful manipulation of stone, demonstrating knowledge of weight, balance, and spatial design. Machu, in particular, is notable for its long, narrow passage aligned with the setting sun during the winter solstice, flooding the inner chamber with light at a precise moment each year. How did these Neolithic builders achieve such precision? And what did these alignments signify for a society long predating written records? Most chambered cairns date from approximately 3,200 to 2,500 BCE, contemporary with some of the earliest megalithic monuments in Europe, yet their sophistication suggests more than mere funerary function. While skeletal remains and funerary artifacts have been discovered, the scale and orientation of these cairns hint at a broader symbolic or ritual purpose. Were they designed solely for interment, or did they serve as ceremonial spaces, astronomical markers, or portals connecting the human and spiritual realms? The placement of the cairns in relation to one another and to the surrounding landscape suggests a careful integration with natural features, as if the builders sought to harmonize their monuments with hills, watercourses, and the sky itself. The construction of these cairns presents remarkable technical challenges. Massive stones, some weighing several tons, were quarried, transported, and positioned with meticulous care. Passageways were often lined with precisely cut stones, corbelled to form stable ceilings, while chambers could be accessed only through narrow entrances, creating an intentional sense of transition from the external world to sacred interior spaces. How were these feats accomplished without metal tools or wheeled vehicles? Did the builders rely on intuitive engineering, accumulated communal knowledge, or techniques that have been lost to time? The answers remain speculative, yet the surviving monuments testify to an advanced understanding of construction, weight distribution, and architectural harmony. Many cairns exhibit intricate alignments and orientations. Machu, with its winter solstice alignment, is the most celebrated example. Yet similar considerations appear elsewhere, suggesting that these structures were designed to interact with celestial cycles. Some archaeologists have proposed that alignments with the moon, solstices, or notable stars indicate a sophisticated awareness of time and season, possibly linked to agricultural cycles or ritual observances. Could these monuments have functioned as calendars, as spiritual observatories, or as physical expressions of cosmology? And if so, what deeper knowledge did the Neolithic people of Orkney possess about the rhythms of the heavens, encoded here in stone? Inside the chambers, the presence of human remains and artifacts evokes both reverence and mystery. Skeletal deposits indicate complex funerary practices. Some bodies appear to have been carefully interred, while others show signs of repeated use of the chambers over generations. Stone tools, pottery shards, and decorative items suggest that rituals accompanied these burials, yet the precise nature of these ceremonies is unclear. Were the cairns sites of ancestor worship, offerings, or initiation rites? Did the builders believe these chambers functioned as thresholds to other realms, or as sanctuaries safeguarding the memory of the deceased? The absence of written accounts leaves only the stones themselves to speak, their arrangement and construction offering clues but no definitive answers. Some cairns, such as Machu, contain later additions and carvings that complicate interpretation. Viking graffiti etched into the interior centuries later transforms the site into a palimpsest, evidence of human engagement across millennia. These inscriptions highlight how later cultures recognized the power and significance of these structures, yet they also underscore the enduring mysteries that predated even the Vikings' arrival. What drew people repeatedly to these monuments? Was it reverence, curiosity, or the magnetic presence of the stone itself, and how much of the original meaning had already been lost by the time outsiders arrived. The cairns also invite reflection on social and communal organization. Erecting such structures would have required labor, coordination, and sustained effort over decades or even centuries. What social structures supported this monumental work? Were these egalitarian communities with shared religious obligations, or were hierarchies already present, guiding construction through ritual authority? The very act of building, maintaining, and returning to these cairns may have reinforced collective identity, a tangible manifestation of culture and belief. Speculative theories abound regarding the purpose and meaning of the Orkney cairns. Some researchers suggest that passage tombs may have functioned as astronomical observatories, encoding knowledge of celestial cycles for ritual or practical purposes. Others propose that the orientation of stones or chambers aligns with features of the surrounding landscape, suggesting a symbolic or energetic relationship with the land itself. A more speculative perspective even imagines that cairns served as repositories of ancient wisdom, where the dead, ritual, and cosmos intersected in ways we cannot fully comprehend. Though evidence is fragmentary, each theory underscores the sense that these structures were created with deliberate intent, reflecting a worldview both practical and profoundly spiritual. The stones themselves tell stories through their placement, size, and orientation. Large capstones, carefully corbelled ceilings, and long corridors suggest an understanding of geometry and physics, yet also convey a psychological effect. As one moves from the exterior into the shadowed chambers, there is a deliberate sense of transition, of entering another space, both physically and symbolically. Could this architectural choreography have been designed to evoke awe, reverence, or introspection? Were the builders encoding experiences of death, passage, or transformation into the very stones themselves? Walking among the cairns today, one is enveloped by the landscape's austere beauty. The North Sea winds sweep across grassy hills, and the cairns emerge like ancient islands of intent, silent witnesses to a world long vanished. There is a tactile sense of connection to the past. The cold, rough stones, the carefully shaped passages, and the echoes of footsteps along ancient corridors all speak to a society whose concerns, beliefs, and aspirations were encoded in rock. Yet, even as the mind reconstructs possibilities, the full significance of these monuments remains elusive, leaving space for wonder and contemplation. The chambered cairns of Orkney challenge modern understanding of Neolithic society. They reveal that long before classical civilizations, humans were capable of remarkable architectural, astronomical, and symbolic achievements. Yet they also remind us of the limits of interpretation. Without written records, much of the meaning encoded in these stones is lost to time. What knowledge, ritual, or spiritual practice guided their construction? How did these communities perceive life, death, and the cosmos? And how was that understanding expressed in stone? Each cairn is both monument and question, a testament to human ingenuity and an enduring mystery. The alignment of passages, the precision of construction, and the interplay with light and landscape hint at cosmological and ritual significance that we can only begin to imagine. And though centuries separate us from the builders, their intentions resonate through the stones, compelling observers to consider not only what was done, but why it mattered. The chambered cairns of Orkney endure as spaces where past and present converge. They invite reflection on the complexity, knowledge, and imagination of prehistoric societies, and they challenge us to recognize that some aspects of human history are deliberately opaque, meant to inspire contemplation rather than definitive answers. Standing within these corridors or observing the cairns from the surrounding hills, one cannot help but wonder, what else remains hidden in the stones, the mounds, and the landscape? What aspects of Neolithic life, belief, and knowledge have been lost to time? And how much of the human story, encoded in places like Orkney, remains waiting for patient eyes and thoughtful minds to uncover? In these cairns,